TGIF, ladies and gentlemen. Thank God it's flat, and thank God it's Friday. Wow, it's a little bit better right there. My name is Josh Corey. Welcome to the Flat Earth Friday FringeCast, right here on the Iron Realm Media YouTube channel. We've got a great show for you again this week, folks. We've got John Savage, Adam Meakin, Zach Zaballa, Walt Johnson, and myself. My name is Josh Corey. Stay tuned. Grab your pens and papers, because you're going to want to take notes on this one, folks. And welcome, everybody. It is Friday the 13th. You know what? We've got I thought I had some Jason music here, but I didn't get it in time. But that's all right.
I was going to go, woo. All right, there we go.
Welcome, everybody. Let's just jump right in there, Mr. Walter Johnson. Did you get a good nap in?
You know it. It's Friday. What else am I going to do but nap it away?
Good.
I did spend the morning still playing around with these ideas that we're about to get into on the show. No spoilers, so I won't get into what I've been doing. We'll talk about it later. But yes, this week has definitely sparked new excitement in all of us. Our pre-show Wednesday was something else. But I'll shut up and let you guys say hello. How was the rest of your day, Josh?
Oh, it was, fair to Midland. Wasn't too bad. Went to work, came home, chilled out for a little bit, and now I'm here, ready to spend the evening with you fine people.
I had a great day.
You know what, John? I was just getting ready to get to you because I knew I wouldn't be able to keep you contained much longer, and you still beat me to the punch.
Yes, I picked up my dog today, so I'm chuffed. I now have a reason in life again.
I'm sure your kids are glad to hear it.
Oh yeah, got about them. They know who comes first. Nah, it's been a great day, and a great week. And from what I remember of Wednesday, which is almost zero, it was great too. So I'm looking forward to tonight.
Yeah, tonight's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be very informative. How about you, Mr. Adam Meakin? You had to work today too, didn't you?
Yeah, sadly, yeah. It's been a funny week of highs and lows with the sports ball and all that, mate. Apparently we've been cheering the rest of the world up, haven't we, by losing? So, yeah, funny old week, but yeah, a good, interesting midweek. I think we had a great chat with John Quantum Eraser, didn't we? All of us, with regards to the future show, which I'm looking forward to. And shout out to Johnny, wanted to get on tonight, but there's just so many people. So, mate, we'll have you on soon, and I can't wait because they had some great stuff. But I've taken your advice, Josh. I'm sat here with my pen and paper, ready for taking in what we're about to learn tonight from Zach. So I'm really looking forward to this. So I've got a brief grasp, but I know Zach's got a real good solid grip. So looking forward to it.
Even a broken watch is right twice a day. I don't normally suggest people following my advice, but there you go. And the man of not just the hour or the day or the week, but apparently the month, our newest member, our brother in arms, Mr. Zachary Zaballa. Zach?
How's everybody doing out there? Is that what you were going to ask me?
I was going to ask you how your day's been, because you too have had a busy work day.
Oh, yeah. 10 hours again today, about 109-degree heat index right now. I had about 20 degrees in the factory. So yeah, it was warm and long and sweaty. I usually don't sweat, but if I'm standing there sweating in front of a fan, you know it's hot.
Yeah, that's going to be warm.
But
yeah,
it's over. Air conditioning, I love it.
I would be a puddle on the floor in that case.
Yeah, it gets pretty warm.
I try to say you get used to it, but you never do.
No, you never do. Well, as soon as you do, then fall hits, and then winter comes, and you have to acclimate to the cold temperatures.
We've had our 2 weeks of summer, haven't we, John? It's kind of over with now, and it's fading a little bit.
I don't know. We've had the longest summer we've ever had, as far as I remember. I can't remember a summer like this since I was a kid in the 80s.
You guys ready for that ice age that's coming, right?
That's right.
I'm waiting for it to end any minute. It can't carry on, John. This is just weird.
I'm hoping it ends. I mean, I'm not a hot weather person, so it's not been good for me. I've only been able to work at 7 o'clock at night, or 8, even 9 o'clock at night. And of course, I can't get the angle grinder out at that time of night. So, yeah, I wish it would get cool.
Before we start with Zach's spread, shall I get the other guys in so they're able to
go for it.
Listen? I'll let you, Phil.
Well, I think some really classic Phil would be telling everybody who these guys are. Because these guys, the presentation Jack's going to give us this evening ties in directly to the work that these gentlemen have been doing as well. So Zach really wanted to get these guys on to get their input and help, again, hone what it is that he's doing. Because that's sort of how this works. You got to get sort of that peer review. And the trouble with flat earthers is that you don't have very many peers. So we're going to bring these guys on, the guys from over there at Nathan Oakley 1980 channel, doing the flat earth debates. So we will have Nathan Oakley, Anthony Riley, and Ranty Flat Earth joining us this evening. So I think that's going to be really exciting. I do love having all these gentlemen on.
Soundboard whistles and cheers.
So I expect they should be along any minute now. Let's see what I'm going to have to actually bounce out of here for a few minutes, go run my son to work here in maybe 15 or 20 minutes. But I shan't be long because it's not far. So
how's this guitar playing been going? Just wondering.
He's busy practicing. He still practices a little bit every day. At least while he's here. I don't know what he does at his mom's house because I'm pretty sure he leaves his guitar here. But I guess he's trying to make up for it on the weekends. From what I can tell, he learns a lot of songs by ear, and then he'll watch YouTube videos, and he's getting down chords. So,
man, young guys these days have no clue how lucky they are with this YouTube access, man. I had to do it all by ear, or in the 80s, they finally came out with this thing called Guitar for the Practicing Musician magazine with the tablature. Oh, that was a godsend. That was like a miracle. That saved me and taught me so much early on. And then this whole revolution now, though, you can see it. It's there. There's no guessing. What does that note mean? What's that little symbol mean? What is that? It's there. You see what they're doing. I love it.
I remember watching concerts with U2 and Guns N' Roses and stuff, and just going through it frame by frame by frame, trying to work out what.
I can't tell you the number of albums that have a little finger mark from me slowing it down on the label to work on a section. Like, okay, I know this note's something. I can figure it out. Especially Van Halen, man. When Van Halen stuff came out, I was just like, what is this guy doing?
I never could figure it out. I ended up selling the guitar, and that was the end of my rock career.
Not a musical boy, Rob, but I was so surprised this morning to pull out calling all occupants of Interplanetary. I nearly saw it.
Yes.
That was funny this morning, dude.
See, your reference is Karen Carpenter, right?
Yeah, I'd seen it.
Not mine. I didn't even know that existed until just a few years ago when people were like, wait, that's Karen Carpenter. I'm like, no, this is a bunch of guys from a band called Klaatu, and I've known this song since I was about 8 or 7 or whatever. Literally, I've had that song in my life that long since it hit. So I didn't even know she had covered it later. And then that whole album. I mean, you heard the Sir Rugglesby song this morning, man. That song, it's a Muppet song that should have been on the show, didn't make it. We still didn't hear Anus from Uranus, one of the most amazing guitar-driven songs ever done. The bass player for that band is amazing. He just walks all over the bass. Okay, I'll stop. They're great. Go check out Klaatu. Klaatu. We could play some. I would say as old as they are, we won't get hit with copyright strikes, but does that ever happen for us on YouTube?
Don't risk it for a biscuit.
That's it. We'll throw some on later when Josh gets back. He's the only one that won't break stuff by playing a song. I will if I try. No, I can't. I tried this morning to play stuff. I still don't know why I can't share sounds on YouTube. I mean, on Skype.
That is really strange. I guess maybe just, I don't know.
I went through it after the show a little bit to see why it wouldn't, because I'm clicking it off. I don't know.
Skype settings are all good and everything?
I'll check again, but
weird.
Again, if I try, I'll probably crash.
I don't even want to get into it now. Now is probably not the best time. Whilst we wait for the other gents to get in here. Let's see what else has been going on.
I've got a little announcement. I don't know what to say tonight. I forget most weeks to try and say good morning, West Coast Wisdom, because I know it's listen, yeah, but I think it might be a good evening tonight, because apparently there's pizza and wine flowing.
I've got a shout out to Stacey McStationery for another great blog post. I think it was this week.
Absolutely.
She's doing a great job over there.
And I have not checked. That's my bad. I have not checked back in with Stacey after she said yes, that she would definitely be on some point. We got so busy with all the things that have been going on since Zach got here. He's just got us all working with new stuff in our heads. So I have not checked back in.
This season is a bit mad. I say this season. Have we had a break? But probably not. But yeah.
No, we haven't. You know we do year-long seasons, John. Come on, man.
Well, This season's been going probably, about 3 months, I guess. Our last break was 3 months ago, I'd say, thereabouts.
I thought that's what we did. We did a year, then we took a 6-month break. So I guess 3 months we should have to do another break.
Well, we've got that calendar out there now. So you just tell Stacey to pick a Friday, and I'll post it up there. And
I'm headed over to Twitter right now to get in touch and tell her we need to get her on here. Probably, 3 weeks from now, maybe?
Well, we've got QE next week. So basically anytime after that.
I think we had something else going on next week, too.
Well, we're not sure if the gent that was going to be on tonight is available as well in terms of the Masonic chat. So
yeah, Chad, that's true. That was it. He was going to try to be here for the Friday the 13th, and he's out with the fam, headed to vacation time. So have fun, Chad, and be careful. And
we've observed.
We'll talk to you soon, my brother. Hello to everybody in our chat there. I see a crew just loving it. I see Karen B. Actually, we were talking about having you back on, Karen, soon. So pick a date, really, and get with us, because you know how we are. We get sidetracked and put too many things on that back burner, and they just sit there, and new things distract a squirrel. So, But yeah, anyone actually that's out here with us on a regular basis, that's what we do this for. That's why we originally put Iron Realm Media together. It's to be a platform for people to come on and tell their path to knowledge, to find out they're not alone, to let other people see that, we're not all a bunch of crazy tinfoil hatters. And we kind of have gotten to the point where we've done so many great guests that are doing the research. We've kind of let the regular people, I guess, on the side. So we need to get back on Twitter. We need to start getting some people back on here that not necessarily the rock stars of Flat Earth, if you will.
I've got something to talk about, like people. We've got the guys on Ranty and Nathan and everything. There's a guy called Leeds Rules, and let me just see if I can swap it over now and screen share sounds with you guys, just so you can see it. Just bear with me. And this guy's done like a soundboard of the rumpus. I'll just press play now, and it should come through.
You should be. This made me good.
Yeah, I'll just play a little touch of it. Hopefully people will hear it, but here you go.
Or dirty air, which is another sort of refraction. You're actually looking through just a few feet of air. 156 months. 76R. So yeah, I know I'm disagreeing with Sly here. I mean, it's just to get above most of that. Anyway, so going back to the thing the practicality. So you let me present here. I can present the. Oh well, I could tell the difference. Anybody independent objective analysis of McRae. No, not Steve McRae. Yes, it was Steve McRae. This is the thing that Chris Monk goes on about. Well, I've seen the evidence. I mean, we've observed the standard refraction. Every time you say this, I can have and show you. I do have a scaled version of this.
There you go, guys. I thought that was quite funny. He's done a few. I think there's a Timmy Osmond one and a few others that we're fucking at. It's a guy called Lee's Rules. So yeah, shout out to him. I'll end it there. Have we been joined?
We've been joined by Anthony. Hello, Anthony. Oh, was that an echo?
A major echo happening.
Someone got YouTube running?
Yeah, just give me a second to stop screen sharing.
It wasn't me.
Well, you can hear us, at least. That's a good start.
I can, but Skype's doing that stupid thing where it keeps kicking me after I've been in the call for about 10 seconds. Does it about 6 times, and then eventually it learns that I want to be in.
Sure, I've heard of that.
Does anybody else get Skype?
Your handlers don't want you to talk to us.
Yeah. Does anybody else get weird Skype things like you'll send a message and it goes sending, and it never sends it until you exit the program and then reload the program? Yes.
I've had that happen a lot lately.
All kinds of stuff.
Various weird Skype issues. What on earth are they doing with Skype? Are they deliberately trying to decompose it back into its constituent elements?
I think they're trying to make the free version so horrible that everybody's either going to cough up the money for their real version or they're going to leave it. That's what's going to happen. Somebody's going to make something better. They have to. This thing is... and then I can't tell you how many times we hear, like this morning, we heard like chatter on the line over our conversation. Zach was listening to it on the air and heard it. It was like somebody else was on the line.
Your voices. Yeah, it was not your voices. They were different words.
Echoes.
I could
was
hear
different. Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy sauce.
Before Josh shoots, guys, I've just I mean the greatest laid plans, Josh. That we did all that stuff for you to present. Zach's work and you're going, aren't you? Or is he gone?
No, I'm here. Sorry.
I was going to say he may have already shot out, but he's here.
No, I'm here. At least for another few minutes.
Yeah, I should be able to just look on Skype. We got the order down and everything.
Well, it won't take long.
No worries.
Well, if you just want to have everybody just kind of come in and say hello once Nate and Ranty get in, everybody can just fill for a few minutes. I really won't be long.
Well, Anthony, what have you been up to? Anything new? I haven't had a chance to keep up with anything lately, but anything new in the last sort of week?
The best thing I heard in the last week was Jaren's experiment that he's thinking of doing. He's thinking of getting a 3-mile piece of twine, string, not rope, but string, and it's got neutral density. So if you suspend it in water over 3 miles down a canal, you do away with this sag idea because the water will hold the line up for you. And over 3 miles, if you pull the wire taut, if the water curves, which obviously we all know that it doesn't, but if the water curves, when you pull it taut, 1.5 foot will drop in the middle because of the bulge if you pull the wire taut, and that would therefore show that the surface of standing water would in fact be curved or not curved, whether or not you get the 1.5 feet of tangent or bulge, whatever you want to call it, and if you don't get the 1.5 feet and it pulls taut flush with the surface, the absence of the 1.5 feet in the middle would then prove that standing water does not curve. and I think that's the best experiment I've heard him do.
Yeah.
But that being said, I've heard him do loads of things, and I've thought, yeah, that's ace. That'll well work. And obviously, when it comes down to it, you don't always get what you think's going to happen.
There is that. Yeah, I'll tell you, that would be great in the Bedford Canal, 6 miles, and instead of string, use floated or even fishing wire. You know, so like marlin fishing wire that's like luminous or something.
This line is only 3 ounces at 3 miles long.
It floats on the water, so
it's so light. Yeah,
it's lighter than the water, so the water will take the sag out of it. So basically, all you got to do is pull it at the other end, and it'll pull it taut. And if it drops by 1.5 feet in the middle, then it's curved water, and I'd be on their side then. See you later, boys.
So what? He's got some special string already that sort of floats, or
he knows which string you want.
Yeah, it's just a certain kind of twine that's very light.
But it's also very expensive. He's going to have to do a GoFundMe for it. But I think it's the best observation that you could possibly do, because it'll put it to bed for me. If the water curves, there'll be
going to guarantee that it stays in a straight line and not deviates? Because it could easily sort of deviate 1.5 feet over 3 miles, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, you pull it taut, don't you?
He's going to winch it.
Yeah. That's a good idea, though.
And it's very strong, too. It's real light, but it's very sturdy. It's real strong.
And if you do it on a canal where you've not got tides or whatever, you've only got the risk of surface winds that affect the outcome, then obviously canals are all dropped anyway. So basically, I can't see how it's a no-brainer. For me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think the Bedford canals would be quite good, wouldn't it?
Well, it's repeatable, isn't it?
There's places here in Louisiana with locks and like all kind of waterways here that I know there's got to be stretches at least.
Come on, Walt. Where there's locks, come on, think about it.
I'm just saying there's all kinds of waterways here. We've got levees, we've got canals, we've got bayous. There's all kinds of waterways here. But yeah. You're right.
But the thing is, though, I mean, it's repeatable, it's verifiable.
And right, he could do it somewhere, and we could do it down here.
Tony, help me here, mate. I'm struggling. I can't visualise this at all. What? Explain it again. You got
a 3 mile stretch of water.
Go ahead, man.
3 mile stretch of water with a twine sat on top of the water because it's less dense than the water. Yeah. Or in other words, the gravity's not pulling down on it, so it'll not sink. It'll float on the water. And what that allows you to do is remove the sag from it when, if it was too heavy, like, and you tried to do it in the air, you pull it, it'd snap. But or if you tried to pull it taut, it would sag. But when you have it neutral density in the water, then it means that the sag isn't there. Yeah. So when you pull it taut, because of the curve of the Earth that's supposed to be there on standing water, it would mean that the 3 mile stretch would cause a bulge in the middle of 1.5 feet. And what it means is when they pull it taut, the middle of the wire would go down in the water by 1.5 feet. Which, when you put it that way, it sounds ridiculous.
No, so I didn't understand what it was. It was that last bit. I understand now. I was trying to visualise what you were going to measure. So it's so when you cause the straight line, okay.
Yeah. So the bit in the middle is the bit where you're going to be getting the proof. But you could also do it at 25% of the distance and 75% of the distance and see, does that marry up with the geometric shape of the Earth as well? Because obviously there would be no refraction argument, so it's just the geometry of the Earth.
At the midway point, you could just have a 1.5 foot long, one of those like pencil fishing floats.
Yeah, and you can mark it off. You say at the top part of it, you could say it's flat. At the bottom part of it, you'd say, this is your minimum requirement, because that's what will be required on standing water of 3 miles, according to what they tell us. Wow. Anywhere in the middle means that there's something else going on. It might be that the wire's got some kind of deformity in it or whatever. Something else is going on, but they've got to get it to that 1.5 feet, and it has to be accurate. So it has to get within a tolerance of plus or minus 5%, otherwise it's not going to be considered a pass. But that's where it's got to get to. It's got to sag, or rather drop. It's got to drop by 1.5 feet in the middle.
And where was he? Sorry, where was he talking about this?
In the I don't know where he was talking about it, but he's talking about doing it in the same canal where he tried to do the laser experiment, but it started getting all weird results.
Where did you hear about it?
I heard it on Nathan's show today at the end when it was either Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole or Rich Thrive and Survive joined. I think it was David.
Right, I'll have to have a look through some of Jaren's stuff. Like that sounds like
Rich
a really
went
good idea.
back on the ball. You guys heard that, right?
Yeah, I heard it.
That was hilarious. That great video he did. Shout out, Rich.
I think
I saw the title, and I just thought, hello.
Ah,
Hi, Nathan. How you doing?
let's bring him in. I'll have to drop you, Savage. Lee. There we go, in the pit. Are you there, Nathan? He was.
Yes, can you not hear me?
Yeah, can down, mate. Can down.
Now. Hi, Nathan. How you doing?
Very well. How are you all doing?
Very well. Savage here, by the way.
I was waiting in the other room in Skype, waiting for it to ring, and then I realised you're on.
Sorry.
Sure.
How you doing, Nathan? Welcome, sir.
Keep having me.
This is Walt here.
And we're waiting for Ranty, is that right?
Yeah, he's probably not realised. He's probably done the same as me. So send him a message.
I'll give him another call from here and see if we can get him.
So what's been at the forefront of your week, Nathan?
Wind turbines on the whole.
Really?
Wind turbines.
That sounds interesting. What? Explain.
For a
long distance photos, sort of wind turbines.
Yeah, sort of 20 to 23 miles. Ranty's got lots of images, which typically, as soon as they get flashed up or have been over the last year, say, people would say, there you go, obvious proof of curvature. And they take you immediately to the refracted hidden value in the curve calculator. And I don't know what Anthony's covered in terms of this. Have you covered anything we talked about earlier, Anthony?
No, we were just talking about the twine experiment from Jaren.
Oh, okay. So, you've not... Well, maybe we can... I don't want to steal your thunder because it was you that said it to me, Anthony, in terms of the not flattening out, but bringing the curve calculation, which is a squared function, back in line with perspective by virtue of... Sorry, go on.
What I noticed is that when you do... so Adam's going to be doing the swatted up on this.
This is more of another one of your lot's bloody fool's errands. So
yeah, but you're the fool that's doing the errand.
That's what I mean.
We're the brains behind the outfit.
The monkey doing the grinding the organ, yeah. Yeah.
What it seemed to me was that when I looked at the refracted hidden value, if you get an arbitrary value and start at, say, 20, and then go to 21 miles, 22 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles, and go up it until, say, 30, if you record the standard, the refracted hidden value, and if you then record the hidden value, you know caused by this 76R. But it looked to me like there wasn't the squared function being represented by the refracted hidden. And it looks to me like they've backwards engineered the refracted hidden squared function with an adjustment that they call standard refraction, which basically reduces that squared function and makes it more linear. In other words, they make it perspective by getting rid of that secondary function, which is the squared effect part of it. Now, it's only suspicion at this point. Adam's going to play with the numbers and see if it's true. But I'm pretty certain that what they've done is with the standard refraction is removed or negated that squared part of it. In other words, left us with a slope that obviously we don't live on, but see. And they've called that slope the curvature, and that appears to be what is happening. But it's only work in progress. It's very rough. We've only just literally spoke about it tonight, but that does appear to be what's happened. But we'll come back with that one on Nathan's show in the next 3 or 4 days.
The point to date, then, without us going into too much detail about that particular aspect of it, these wind turbines basically, you're no longer looking at that value, so you can kind of ignore that from this point. I know you'll get what Anthony's just said, but the refracted hidden value is not relevant because what we're looking at is something that's up in the air, wind turbines. So we're looking at something that's, you can only really go by the drop value because it's where they're placed geometrically on the Earth as opposed to how much Earth curve is obscuring it based on your... Is sagittal the right word? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're looking at the tops of them. And what we're finding is they are falling perfectly in line with perspective, and there is no curve. And when we discussed it with you last, Adam, you explained that the best you could hope to achieve would be a line of best fit. And this was confirmed today. So we had Block for Block showing us a few different models, and I did exactly that. I just tested your statement by saying to him, let's zoom right in and let's just have a look. And when you get right in, sure enough, you can see it. You can see that you cannot achieve a line through all of them. You can only achieve a line of best fit, and that applied to both. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a winner. You know, it's something that's measurable. You know, it's you can almost taste it, because it's not in the vicinity that they like to take you to, which is the band of refraction, this narrowing of the angle at the convergence point. And for some reason, don't ask me why, but you have this effect of a fold line with things that are above being reflected below, and a dropping of the horizon. So you have an artificial horizon line at this convergence point. I've been to date saying it's because of the narrowing of the angle down to nothing, basically. And as you look up and down these turbines, obviously the further down you look towards the base of the turbine, your angle of view of that turbine is reduced also. So it's not as simple as just looking at the turbine and saying it's this feet and inches value that's applied to it. It's nonsense, because you've got a varying view as you look down it. Obviously, your angle of attack to the bottom of that turbine when you're on, 6 feet off the beach, 20 miles away, is almost nothing. But you do have a very slight angle. This is going to be in decimal places, but you do have an angle on the top of it. And therefore, you can see the effects of what's happening going into the distance on the tops of the turbines without any interference. And what we're seeing is a completely linear, straight line. And you can't have that. You can't have a straight line on a curved surface.
I'll tell you what, Nathan, it's almost as if you guys have got to write a textbook or something on this, and then sort of travel the country holding seminars or like wreath lectures or something with props and things like this, just because it is literally, I would say this is at a 2-degree level understanding. Would you agree?
Heavy duty, right?
I don't think so at all. I think most people understand implicitly that things get smaller into the distance. And what we're looking at in these turbines is things getting smaller into the distance. The point that it gets complicated is when you explain how conceptually it should look if it was on a curved surface. And when it's measured, it ignores perspective. And that's the strongest point, which I think everyone will always understand. When you do these measurements and say how much of the refracted hidden the value we're always taken to is in effect, you're ignoring the fact that these things get smaller into the distance. So that, for me, is always going to be a winner, and doesn't require a great deal of intelligence to get, I don't think.
Maybe everyone just needs to take a class in art.
Yeah, precisely.
That's all it takes, really, isn't it?
I mean, that was like, for me, I seem to remember doing it pre-high school, maybe 9 or 10 years old.
But they certainly weren't teaching you this stuff. I mean, they certainly weren't teaching you what you should be seeing and what you're not seeing, and the curve just never entered into it.
No, definitely not. But I think you taught this stuff as though it's artistic only. You taught about vanishing points and perspective lines in art class. But that's how our world works.
Yeah, exactly. Art. I mean, if you're doing landscapes or things like that, that's reality. You're not making it up. It's not just art that this works in. It's reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but definitely. I mean, why I say it's sort of A-level. I mean, to an indoctrinated baller from birth, I would say that to get to this level of understanding of what's going on, it is almost like sort of A-level standard.
That I'll definitely agree with. I mean, it's taken me a while, to comprehend it and to be able to verbalise it in a simplistic way.
And that's it. You verbalise it, fantastic. That's what I mean. You should just transcribe your hangouts and stick it in a textbook with diagrams and things. And yeah,
about that. See, if you transcribed it, it would be intersected with you're a buffoon, you're a moron. Why aren't you getting this? It wouldn't go down well in a textbook.
So how much of that is acting and how much of that is absolute outrage on your part? Because you play it very well.
I hear anger. I do hear anger in your voice.
It is sincere.
When you're talking to some of these trolls.
That's boiling.
And I don't blame you at all. I mean, I can't believe that you keep your cool as well as you do. I couldn't even do what you do.
Yeah, Charles is the one that's probably, I was really biting my tongue, because as far as I'm concerned, he's a massive part of the problem if he is indeed a teacher. He's laughing about this stuff with Anthony on some of his hangouts, while simultaneously going back to work the next day and then indoctrinating children with what he laughs about, the understandings of where it falls apart and fails completely. And as far as I can glean, listening to some of the stuff that Anthony has done with Charles in the last couple of days, it seems like the guy knows. The guy knows. And
I think he knows. I think he's known all a lot. Well,
just it makes my blood boil.
Yeah, I agree. Sliceback knows as well. He knows as well as
yeah, totally. And Wolfie and all the others, the main players, definitely. I must say, kudos to you there, Tony, with your debate with the science teacher. That was just absolutely awesome. And kudos to him as well. He was a reasonable person.
He was their version of Adam Meakin, to be honest. A really affable kind of guy that you can't fall out with.
Bollocks.
Seriously, he was. I mean, I tell you what.
Is this the one that Nathan said was bad as a Jehovah's Witness?
Quite possibly.
That was great. That was great. I laugh every time I hear it.
Let me give a little bit of background to this guy, right? He came to me and he said basically he'd seen me talking with somebody on my channel. I can't remember who it was. And he said, look, I've had a back and forth with Dell at Beyond the Imaginary Curve. And he said, and I ended up with that sheeps and neeps. And I was like, right. And he said, I'm just looking for someone that I can have a normal conversation with. And I said, you've unfortunately met the two most aggressive people in Flat Earth. I said, and unfortunately, you're not going to have a good conversation with either of them. I said, what can I do for you? And he said, I just want to know why you think the Earth's not a sphere. And I was like, right, you've come to the right guy then. I said, take a seat, sit down here. Anyway, I put my arm around him, right, and I basically gave him the friendly, affable friendship hand, like the palms. I was like, come here, sit down, it's fine. Anyway, what he wanted from me basically was I worked it out. He wanted me to take a physics exam to see whether or not I've got basic common sense. And I was like, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do the paper if you debate me on Flat Earth. I said, I'll give you the questions beforehand, and you can get, so I'll tell you completely. I'll give you full disclosure. I'll give you the questions, and if you're prepared to give me the answers, I'll give you my rebuttals, so you know what's going to be said. So we agreed. So basically, it was a good trade. I'd give him the paper. In return, he'd give me the debate. Bear in mind, I've given him the questions in advance, and he's given me the rebuttals, and I've given me my responses back. When we came to do the actual debate, it's almost like he threw the answers out the window and answered it as a normal bloke. Because the first question, given that he's a physics teacher, was what scientific evidence is there to prove the shape of the Earth? And the answer is quite a limited, narrow answered question. It's like, it's not something that you can start saying things like, well, there must be a conspiracy between all the governments of the world and pictures from space. It's quite a narrow question. What is the scientific evidence to prove the shape of the Earth? And he didn't give me any. He started reeling them off the way that you would do if it was a normal bloke. So I had to interrupt him, and I didn't really want to interrupt him, but it went that far and that crazy that he was begging me to interrupt him. And I said, listen, in the nicest of ways, the question is this. I said, if this was a real exam paper, you wouldn't get any marks at the moment because you're not giving me any scientific evidence. You're giving me conjecture and opinion, but the question is, what scientific evidence is there? I want the observed phenomenon. I want the independent variable. I want the effect on the dependent variable. I want to show that causative relationship, that causative effect. And basically, I didn't get anything out of him. And in the end, I had to conclude that he got 0 marks for that question because he didn't present anything.
Because you're not giving him 2 for spelling and punctuation?
No, I didn't give him 2 at all, no. I mean, to be fair,
his name right.
Yeah, he did give me 2 for like spelling and punctuation, because we can all spell and punctuate at this point in life. Most of us can anyway. But I didn't want to give him any points because he wasn't answering the question. So what I did was I put my arm around him and I sat him next to me, and I made him think that I was nice and pally and all that. But when it came to the moment where I decided should I stab him or not, I stabbed him, because I wanted him to realise that he hadn't presented any evidence to support the shape of the Earth. There were questions on gravity. There were questions. It was really, really good. So if you've not seen it on my channel, go and check it out. No swearing.
I don't think you stabbed him. I think you were very fair. I mean, it's you were adjudicating on the answer to a pretty simple question. If if we're talking about it, this is your belief, this is your faith, this is what you trust you're living on. Prove it. And a science teacher couldn't. And like you say, there was no swearing or anything like that. And also, he puts this out on his own YouTube channel, doesn't he? And his students watch it. Is that right?
Yeah, his students are all watching it, and what's bizarre about it is he's doing it from the angle of, this is ridiculous. However, behind the scenes, off the record, he's messaging me frequently saying, so how does gravity work on your model again? And what does the moon do? And how do you know that the moon... And he's asking all the right questions. Honestly, 6 weeks' time, he'll be a flat earther, or he'll at least be borderline.
Yeah, I think he's on the path, without a doubt. When it's put so in his face, as a science teacher as well, show us the science, and he can't. He's obviously gone away and tried to do some research. I mean, obviously, which is strange, gyroscopes was not something he knew about as a physics teacher, so he had to go away and admitted that what he was coming up with was Google searches and stuff. That was a blinding question as well.
I mean, I try. One of the questions, the gyroscopes one is one of the key proofs for me. But one of the questions was how you cannot prove gravity, but you can't prove gravity. No, you can't distinguish gravity against density.
That's it.
So what he started doing was talking about vacuum chambers and
pressure,
force equals mass times acceleration and all that. But everything was revolving around the mass, right? And I was like,
he was talking about air pressure, wasn't he?
Yeah. And I'm like, you're still talking about density. I said, everything that you said there is fair play, right? And there is a debate in that, what you've said. But we're still talking about density. Where are you going to get the gravity from? And it's like a foreign question to him. It's like, what do you mean, the gravity? And I'm like, gravity, come on, where is it? I mean, let's go with the basic definitions. You've either got Einsteinian, the bending of space-time, or you've got Newton's, which is obviously objects of mass will attract objects of mass. I said, so by definition, you've got to find another planet, and you've got to interact it with Earth's gravitational pull. And obviously, by that very definition, you cannot prove gravity, nor can you distinguish it against density. And he didn't get the question. He was like, it weren't going in. When I said gravity, what he was thinking was weight, and he couldn't realise that I was saying, no, you've got to distinguish it against that. You can't claim it as the same. It's not the same per definition.
Yeah. And it was. Has anyone seen that video this week of a guy floating an anvil in Mercury?
Yes, I did.
Someone put it up. I can't remember. If that was you, Walt, then thanks a lot, because that was awesome as well.
It was pretty crazy. I don't know if I sent it to you, but I did see it, so maybe I did.
But yeah, it was basically I think he said something like 90-pound anvil or something. It was just floating in a puddle of mercury, because mercury is more dense than the anvil. And I just thought, wow, that's amazing. Where do I get mercury?
What you've got with that is, if you look at the physics teachers' videos, he's started to apply his scientific mind to the egg problem from Phuket word that you've set him, Anthony. It's quite. He's attacked that with great vigour and honesty, that problem, and I think that's going to be the start. He's going to now apply that level of reasoning to Cavendish and all these things that he's espoused, I think.
Yeah, but to be fair, he's done a rebuttal to that on his channel. Why it's called "Why Eggs Can't Disprove Gravity," and I'm like, right, you've kind of missed the point, though.
Yeah. Can someone just fill us in on the egg thing, because that's new to me?
Well, Phuket Word got an egg, and he put it in a state of salt water that basically allowed the egg to sit right in the middle of water. So it was neither at the top nor at the bottom of the water. It was in perfect equilibrium. And all he did was he added salt to the solution, and that made the water more dense. So it displaced the egg, and the egg went up. And when he poured more water back in to bring the density back down again, the egg went back into the middle. So obviously, the independent variable was the salt, which caused the density of the solution to change, displacing the egg. Now, when I pointed that out to him, he totally agrees that the independent variable was the salt, but he can't get his head around the fact that this is not gravity. And he can't get his head around that this is not gravity that's in play. To him, that's gravity because he can apply the maths. Good. And I'm like, but gravity wasn't the independent variable. And he's like, yeah, but it was gravity. And I'm like, no, the independent variable was salt. I said, we agreed that was the independent variable, and in the scientific method, the independent variable affects the dependent variable. Therefore, the independent variable was the cause. But you're telling me that it's gravity. I said, so how is it that if one of your kids in school told you that the independent variable was somewhat different to what the independent variable actually was, you wouldn't pass him on that, would you? And he was like, well, no. I'm like, so why would it be acceptable for you to argue gravity when we've both agreed the independent variable was salt? And he was like, well, I'm explaining it. And I'm like, yeah, but the cause was salt. The cause was not gravity.
You've got to write a textbook, man. This is awesome stuff and so well explained.
Do you know, the guy is so affable, right? I can't fall out with him because he's such a good ambassador for their argument, for their side, that I don't want to upset the guy by losing. Put it this way, if I left him in Nathan's loving arms, it wouldn't have gone this way. And I love that. I mean that in a good way, Nathan, a loving way. But Nathan would have just battered him.
Do you guys shaking in a corner.
You guys remember the Room 101? 2 + 2 = 5, right?
Yeah, you're talking 1984 Winston.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Basically being, beaten down to the point. Now, they put it in, I think it's metaphorical because it's done over a very short period of time, but essentially they brainwash him into, their way of thinking. But this is what it reminds me of. So what does it take to get somebody who essentially preaches the scientific method? And I remember Anthony telling me about his conversations with this guy and saying that his eyes lit up when he started explaining about us debunking certain things by asking for the independent variable. In other words, that was what appealed to him about Anthony. And what does it take to get somebody like that when you say, what's your scientific evidence, for them to say photos from NASA?
Yeah.
What it takes is exceptionally good brainwashing. And he's essentially institutionalized in terms of his way of thinking to go back on those concrete foundations that he sees as just solid. We have seen the Earth from space.
It's pure. It's pure cognitive dissonance, but it's on a level that it is also his income, his life, but that's what makes it weird for me, because I knew a flat Earth teacher when I was at school, and from what I'm hearing, most people knew a teacher that was a flat earther.
John, what it was for me, it's the fact, as Nathan says, that he's still prepared to accept and present, when he was going to Riley, pictures from space,
Yeah.
That actually he got to that point and he didn't go, you know what, mate, there's feck all there, like a lot of us do. There's nothing there. For some reason, even with his training, he thought that was acceptable, and the fact that there was nothing there didn't seem to slap him, which is odd.
I know, but you have to look at it from the other way. Adam, you've been through the education system that I've been through, that he's been through, right? Yeah. When you first come out of it on the other side and you're dead happy, you've got your certificate, right? You've just thrown your scroll up in the air while your mum took your picture for you and all that. You come out thinking that you can take on the world, right? And then the first thing they tell you when you go to your first job is everything that you just learned in university, and you're like, yeah, none of that matters anymore. This is what you need to do. And it's like, really? So that's what, I don't know if you got told that, but I got told that, and they said, this is how you do it. And I was like, really? And that meant that was a little bit surreal. But this guy, it didn't dawn on him that when I said to him, listen, we've just established that the independent variable was salt, right? It's changed the density of the water. We agreed that the cause, therefore, has to be salt. I said, but you're changing that cause and giving it gravity. I said, but put yourself in the shoes of a student. If the student said that it was some other than the independent variable, you would not pass that paper, right? And he was like, well, no. And I'm like, right. Do you not see the problem here? And he's like, no, because... To me, it wasn't cognitive dissonance, because for me, the way I understand cognitive dissonance is it's that uncomfortable feeling in your tummy, and you'll override it anyway for the cause. But you have to have that uncomfortable feeling. I don't think he had that uncomfortable feeling. I think he was brainwashed, and he's not realised he's brainwashed. And it takes somebody to... What was it now? It was Ranty that put it best when he said he needed to bitch slap somebody recently because he needed to knock some sense into him. And to a point, I agreed with what he was saying. But like that bitch slap moment didn't come with him. He needed that bitch slap, and I didn't really want to do it. Nathan would have done it. He wouldn't have thought twice.
You're too nice for Rice. You're too much. You're too much of a nice guy.
I respect where he's at in life, because I understand.
Part of what this might be is the fact that his very personality, how he sees himself, is so wrapped up in what he does as his profession. I mean, that's a lot of these people. They've built their personality on being the smart person, the brain person.
He is in chat right now, by the way, and if I can join dots there with him, his GCSE and A-level science in chat. He needs to speak with in some way. There needs to be a communication with John, because I've just sent the message to him saying, get your ass in here and listen to the last 15 minutes. If I can get John Savage with this guy with regards to a constructive conversation just on gyroscopes, because he openly admitted that he wasn't really clued up on them. Now, I found that astonishing that a physics teacher at A-level, right, he knows A-level physics. He said he did his master's in biology, right, which is, I can understand him not having the expertise necessarily in total physics, because if he didn't do it totally, right, he's probably not going to learn all the aspects of it. But wouldn't you expect a physics teacher generally to have some knowledge and understanding of gyroscopes? And it's almost as if they deliberately didn't tell him. And I'm thinking, wonder if that was a willful omission on the part of the education authority, because it should make you ask questions. Well, how does it work with planes flying around the curvature of the Earth then? But if they don't even tell them about it, then maybe it just gets shoved under the mat and hopes that they never get to. But it'd be great if John and Al, GCSE and A-level science, could have a conversation on somewhere, and then literally tell him how it works and how it doesn't work, what it does, what it doesn't do, and basically teach the teacher the teaching. Do you know what I mean?
That's a good idea. I mean, I'm totally open to it as well. We'll try and line that up if Al is up for it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are more credible people out there than me. I don't claim to be a gyroscope expert in any way, shape, or form. I just understand the principle of the gyroscope. But there's Rob Durham, there's the pilot Tia Jolie, there's Bob, who's a pilot as well. If you're going to be if you're going to be schooled on gyroscopes, it would be ultimately better to get a pilot or someone who uses them in their everyday life to do it. But I'm more than happy to not meet, but virtually meet Al. We'll try and line that up.
Let me ask you something. Can you explain something that I thought he was going to come back to me on the gyroscopes point, but didn't? I thought he was going to come back with the pendulous vanes argument. And he never, for whatever reason, he never found it. He either didn't find it or didn't look it up hard enough or whatever. But
he understands what pendulous vanes are, hasn't he? That's the final alternative.
Well, it is, but he did say that he didn't really know anything about pendulums, gyroscopes. But if you can explain the pendulous vanes points, because there'll be people in chat that are watching that have probably heard about pendulous vanes arguments and never had the explanation for what they do, what they don't do, what they prove, what they disprove. Just talk us through the pendulous vanes and what they do and what they don't do, and the claim against them or the claim for them, which is that there are gravitational adjustments apparently. Do you want to talk us through that, John?
Okay. Well, you got to start off with what a pendulous vane is. It's an addition to a gyroscope, a attitude indicator's gyroscope. And this is only my understanding. I've written a whole blog post on this on savageplane.wordpress.com. Oh, look at me. And
well done, sir.
Yeah,
well done.
That's what I thought. I mean, originally, the classic example of pendulous vanes is four vanes on the bottom of a weight on the weight of the bottom of a gyroscope. I'm going to butcher this, but anyway, if a gyroscope falls out of its alignment, then it moves to one side, and density of the vane will have it drop open, and therefore or drop close on the other side, and therefore correct the gyroscope back to straight and level.
Now, just let me interrupt a sec. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Isn't it an adjustment for a high-speed manoeuvre where the gyroscope creates its own torque by a build-up of air pressure inside that acts as a buffer, and it corrects that by allowing the air to get through it so that it allows for a high-speed manoeuvre? In other words, if the plane's falling out of the sky, it tells you where the horizon is whilst you're falling, kind of thing?
Yeah, the problem was when gyroscopes were introduced into aircrafts, I think back in, well, certainly the early 1900s, and they developed over time. Obviously, within the time that they were developed and pendulous vanes were invented, we had a world war. And dogfighting and planes were used as warfare machines in the war. So dogfighting became an issue, and a win or lose sort of situation. So what happened in the early planes was that the gyroscope, and again, this is only my understanding, anyone can probably pick this to pieces and do their own research far better than I can, but the gyroscopes, when you were doing vicious maneuvers, or what are they, rolls and that sort of thing, then the gyroscope would topple, and then it would be out of alignment when you came back into a level horizon sort of situation. It would be slightly out of alignment. So what they developed were the pendulous vanes, which would dampen. It's like a dampener, basically. It dampens the movement of the gyroscope, so it's slower, so it's slightly slower. So you can do a loop-the-loop or a barrel roll or something like that without having the gyroscope topple. That's how I understand them anyway. But they have nothing to do with the curvature of the Earth or maintaining the curvature of Earth. And I say that confidently because I've heard it from a US Air Force pilot, high-altitude pilot, a commercial pilot, Bob, of course, who has a private pilot's license, Rob Durham, who has a private helicopter's license, and from a gyroscope technician, a US Navy gyroscope technician. So this is my understanding of it, and this is why it makes gyroscopes, for me, the number one one-stop shop for showing that it's not moving and it's not a ball.
I agree. It shows you kill two birds with one stone. It shows that there is no curvature and that we are not moving. So everything else becomes moot. You can debate stuff if you want to go, but a lot of people say about Nathan's show, why is it that you never move off them things and start talking about all the other things like dark matter and all that? And the answer, of course, is, well, they're all like based on the idea that these things are established principles. So you need to prove the established principles before you move off them. And the gyroscopes show that there is no curvature and there is no rotation. And until they can demonstrate that either of the other things are there,
And the beauty of it is that, and the reason why I chose it as the experiment of choice was because there was a guy back in the 1850s who was very well known and respected by some, called Leon Foucault, who most of the listeners are probably completely aware of, who not only did the bogus pendulum experiment, he also claimed to have done a gyroscope experiment in which he claimed to have shown with his, as Bob says, cheesy 1850s gyroscope with no ball bearings and a hand crank to wind it up, gyroscope, that the Earth was spinning. And this made front page headlines and became a norm from then on. But since then, the excuse I've heard is that the gyroscope isn't used as an example. The pendulum always is, and it needs to be a whacking great pendulum, basically in a cathedral-sized building, for them to say that it works. As opposed to, a handheld gyroscope or the size of your hand gyroscope that can work anywhere in any classroom or library or anything else. They just say that the pendulum is more bang for your buck, and that's why no one really talks about the Foucault gyroscope. Well, I challenged that and repeated it, and so have numerous other people, and no one has ever come up with, as far as I know, any sort of drift in a mechanical gyroscope trying to replicate the same experiment that Foucault did all those years ago. So that's why it's a great example, because I get quite often, gyroscopes aren't designed to show the curve of the Earth or the spin of the Earth. You're talking out your arse. Yeah. You don't know what you're talking about. And I just reply and say, so Foucault was a liar in 1852 then. And then they have to go and look up Foucault's gyroscope experiment, and the rest is history.
Well, just to contextualise it, sorry, Anthony. How fast does your gyro go, John?
My gyro goes, as far as I know, or as what's claimed, is 12,000 RPM, I think.
Okay, and how fast was the hand-cranked, cheesy 1800 gyro?
Well, it's very hard to tell, because I've tried researching Foucault's gyroscope and his pendulum and everything about the guy, and there is almost no information out there about it. I mean, his pendulum, his gyroscope is said to be in a museum in France, but it's...
No, that's a replica.
It's a replica. So his original... this is starting to sound like NASA already. His original gyroscope's been lost. So this is a replica. There's no, as far as I know, there are no...
You burned it up with the rocket? No, I'm being silly.
There's no sort of written data or anything shown for the figures he got or the revolutions he got. As far as I know, it was something like 200 revolutions a minute.
Absolutely.
And it was hand cranked.
And didn't he actually do a public display that showed no movement?
I don't know, possibly.
Yeah, but you could measure the duration in seconds, presumably.
He had a massive or a long arm coming off his gyroscope. And I'm not sure how he managed to balance it, but he that's, again, something we'll never know. And it was this arm was hovering over a degrees, whatever they are, showing the degrees of movement. And he had a telescope or a microscope even looking at the pinpoint of the arm over these degrees, and that's what he said. And I think it ran for something like 6 minutes, and he said, there was 3/4 of a degree of movement or something along those lines. There you go, done.
Just to contextualize that, how long did your gyro test run?
Well, the longest one was 6 hours. Well, actually, I ran it for 24 off camera, but the longest one I ran was 6 hours on camera. I did a 2-hour one on the rotating 24-hour clock, and I did a 1-hour one with no wires attached to self-contained unit with batteries.
So, okay, just to contextualize this. So let's stick with the 6-hour one just because it's nice numbers. So we've got a 6-hour one and a 6-minute one. Just remind us what Foucault got in 6 minutes.
Well, he should have got, I imagine, 9 degrees or something along those lines. Is that right or wrong?
What did you get on yours?
I got 0 degrees on mine. It didn't move any.
Not in 6 minutes. How long did you get in the 6 hours, though?
Yeah, 6 hours. It stayed. There's an excruciating 6-hour long video that anyone can go and watch that will show it. It just sat pointing at 0 degrees for the whole 6 hours.
All right. So literally none in 6 hours versus 6 minutes. That's quite interesting.
It is quite interesting, isn't it? And it's repeatable and measurable and observable, and anyone else can do it.
That's what I said to him as a science teacher. This is definitely something you could spin up at the beginning of your hour-long classroom class, your lesson, and then by the end of it, explain what doesn't happen and why it doesn't happen. And I mean, he needs to do that because that is something that can be checked. I mean, it is repeatable, observable, and whatnot. But the other thing about it is, of course, because it's so simple, and he never got taught it for whatever reason. Call me conspiratorial, but isn't that quite interesting as to why he never got taught anything about gyroscopes? It's such a basic test to do, right?
It is. I mean, it's one of those things. Even now, you can't really buy a gyroscope that's not called a toy. An executive toy maybe, but it's still called a toy. And you're looking at things with super high precision engineering that are running. I mean, my gyroscope will run for half an hour on a spin, unpowered, so it's been spun up and it will run for half an hour silently almost. And it's just you're not taught these things. It's a toy. It doesn't tell you actually anything of any importance. It's just a toy. It's a spinning top, even.
The other thing, just the last point, and then I'll give way. When I said to him about, when you put the gyroscope mechanism on the rotating plate that was a clock, a 24-hour clock, that showed the 15 degrees of rotation every hour, right?
Yeah.
The problem with doing that is that if the Earth was actually spinning and the mechanism that you put the gyroscope onto was now detecting a 15-degree rotation in an hour, it should also detect the 15 degrees of the Earth rotation in that hour, and we should get up towards the 30 degrees mark, minus an adjustment for the latitude. But nonetheless, we should have got more than 15 degrees because you would have the Earth spinning in addition to you spinning the gyroscope on the clock. But the fact that it didn't show that, there's 15 degrees roughly missing. And I'm like, that is a key point of the equation. That needs to be ringing bells to you. Where's the rotation of the Earth, right?
Well, it depending on how it's orientated, you're absolutely right. But it would range from between 1 degree or however you had it orientated. It would be either 1 or 15 degrees faster, or 1 or 15 degrees slower, or anywhere in between. But it shouldn't be, if the Earth was spinning, it shouldn't register exactly 15 degrees per hour, which it did over 2 hours. It was clearly pointing at 30 by the end of it.
But if you go back in that hangout with me, and when I put that to him, he had that blank look in his face where it just went in one ear and out the other, and it didn't register. And I'm like, come on, this is important. Do I need to slap you for this to work? Come on, pay attention. Where's the 15 degrees rotation? And it didn't go in. And I'm like, come on, Al.
Gyroscopes tend to evoke a stare into the distance, no matter who you're talking to, really. Because, like you say, most of us we claim to know gyroscopes. A lot of people say, they think they know it after reading a wiki page or something. But in reality, it takes an awful lot more to get even close to understanding what you haven't been taught about gyroscopes.
Yeah, education teaches you the knowledge, but the actual intelligence is learning how to think.
Yeah. And just understanding the rigidity in space and the torque-free movement that a gyroscope has, and the fact that those properties are almost, as far as I know, unique to the gyroscope. It makes it a very, very special instrument.
Yeah. Anyway.
That was the mother of all fools. But go on, Nathan.
I was just going to say, I did want to bring it back to the 1984 point, which is to say, even I could make a prediction. You could go through all of this with him, make it really clear, understood. But at the end of it, he's still going to turn on his TV, radio, open his newspaper, go on any internet page, talk to anybody, and everything will be geared towards heliocentric and globe belief as a standard. Like, it just is what it is, which is probably why his first port of call was, well, we've got a picture of it, right? As opposed to listening to the question. But that's through pure brainwashing. Every single time you watch a cartoon, it's going to have a globe in there somewhere. Every single time you turn on the news, there's a good chance there's a globe spinning in the background. It's just, it's immersive. We have been immersed in globe. So it's everywhere. For us, we probably notice it, depending on our type of personality, a lot more or a lot less. Either we switch it off completely and just kind of blank out all of that propaganda and subliminal messaging, which is what it is, because it's not real. So we would either switch it off or go, look, there's another globe, and you realise how vast it is, how deep the brainwashing actually goes. And it's because they've got lots of minions that are doing it on their behalf, whoever they may be. They may not even exist. It may just be the system in motion. But ultimately speaking, we would have all done at some point our own little, part in brainwashing next man or keeping the illusion of globeness alive. Just in our language, even as flat earthers, we say things that if you went back and analysed how you're saying certain words and phrasing things, you're phrasing it in a heliocentric way without even realising it.
Yeah. Of course, the minions that you're referring to are the teachers. They are the foot soldiers passing on the good word, right?
Well, no, I kind of meant more like me. So just as an example, straight from me, before I was a flat earther, I was with my niece, and pointing up at the stars and telling her about how it worked in their model. Yeah? And when you talk just in general language, people, if they say, well, globally this is happening, they're not necessarily trying to brainwash the next man. It's just they are themselves brainwashed and they carry on the narrative. So it's comfortably everywhere always without anybody having to think about it. And when you're that's why it's like you say, blank stares, when something is absolutely flying in the face of that. It cannot process almost. Yeah. So I get what you're saying. And critically, when he came on the show, people in the aftermath were like, well, maybe you should be more kind when people are making certain concessions. And my answer is, well, the reality is even this conversation now isn't necessarily for any of us as individuals to understand what's being said. It's for the audience. There might be a guy who's listening intently and then gets it as a result of said globehead just going, no, or pictures from space when asked for scientific evidence. That might switch somebody else on. Why somebody deny something so obvious? Because they haven't made the link yet. In other words, they've listened to the description, but because it doesn't fly in the face of their particular indoctrination through the school system, they understand implicitly what you explain about the gyroscope, but don't necessarily realise immediately that it completely debunks the current model. So that might come next, but you've got to hear somebody who's a man of science denying it or saying, well, I haven't even looked into it, for it to maybe ring a few alarm bells in audience members.
Well, he has actually said that in text about 5 minutes ago. Did you guys catch it?
No.
No, not watching.
So if you look in the chat where Globebusters says Gem was grown in a lab, the comment underneath is from the teacher, and he says, quote, "You are right, but I'm only just getting into this." Oh, hang on, no, that's not the right one. There was one he said earlier on. He says, "You're right. I don't know anything about gyroscopes." And I'm like, I said, my response was, you can't be in the flat Earth discussion as a physics teacher and not know about gyroscopes.
But so few people do. I mean, he's kudos again for admitting that he doesn't know anything about gyroscopes as a physics teacher.
And that's the cognitive dissonance, though, guys, because that was pointed out a week or two ago. Now, if that was me, the first thing you're going to do is go rush and find out about gyroscopes to prove it. So you're even not looking because you know when you look, it's going to mess with your head. It's my only assumption that if by now he doesn't know about gyroscopes.
That's the case at all. I think it's more the case that it makes you think in the moment and you have that cognitive break, but the second the hangout finishes or the conversation ends, you immediately open the paper and see a picture of a globe and all is well again.
Yeah.
Well, that's the difference then, isn't it? Because when, just like, is it Al? Isn't it the guy's name? Yeah, just like
Al,
him.
yeah.
We were all the same. I started looking into it, and each bit got me more interested to look at the next bit and the next bit, and that's how I stumbled across Mr. Savage. Do you know what I mean? So,
I think it comes from. It's a natural curiosity, and B, the ability to at least entertain the idea that you've been lied to about everything, and even that includes even the Earth. I think most of us came from a sort of 9/11, or legal system, or Apollo moon landings. That's where I came from. I spent 3 years researching the moon landings back in the early 2000s because I just wanted to pick a subject. I was sick of hearing that the moon landings didn't happen, and I just wanted to pick a subject, being the moon landings, and literally dive in and go to the very depths, the ones and zeros of that, of what was going on there, and find out. And it pretty soon dawned on me that the whole thing was a complete hoax, but I never knew why. So when I immediately heard Flat Earth, when I heard it first, it immediately clicked, and everything just slotted into place like a game of whatever that dropping blocks game was. But that's it, Tetris, and everything. The whole screen just lit up and dropped away, and it was wow. That's the reason why. Well, I can't remember where I was going with that, but what I was saying is that you need that natural curiosity, and you need to be able to at least entertain the idea that what we're describing could be right, and then put your scientific head on and go and test it. There's no better way.
Can you imagine, though, being a teacher and then spinning a gyroscope up and just sticking it on a window ledge, knowing that the Earth's meant to be rotating, and then at the end of your lesson, not seeing any rotation in it and thinking, that should be a moment where you think to yourself, well, why?
It should trigger that natural curiosity, and
we've got another thing coming up, haven't we? Now with Zach, which I'll be interested, Anthony, to get the feedback from what Zach's going to print, because you talk to Al, don't you? So I'll be interested to see what he thinks of this. And we're coming up to the hour and a half mark, I think. So do we want to have a quick break in 5 or so minutes? I'll get Gravity lined up and then come back for Zach, or do you want to just plough on, Zach?
Yeah, we could take a break.
Yeah, that sets it up, and it's good for our segmenting.
That's beautiful. Give me a second then.
Give me 15.
This is the bit where it all starts going wrong.
No. Then it all went off the rails.
Right, I'll hand over to Josh, and I'm ready when you are, Josh.
Someone nudged
Josh
wake
made
him
it
up.
back. Josh has returned. Yeah, Josh has returned.
Seamless transfer then.
Josh is always here.
Well,
I'm just not sure what it is you need me to do.
I just
press play.
No.
Bring up that claw too. No, I'm just being.
I've got a bit of Cheyenne.
Well, while you fumble in the background, I think it's been a great first hour. That was a very impromptu, on the spot questions from you guys covering gyroscopes and all that. That's fantastic, though. It needed to get out there. Hope it came across all right.
That was good fun. Right, guys, then I'll ask you to mute then. I'm ready to go. I mean, I'm waiting here. I'm waiting.
Muted.
Right, guys, I'll see you with a cup of coffee in a minute.
We're up pretty high. Our heads are almost in the clouds, and their feet are chained.
Seamless, I'm telling you, smooth.
Well, I was thinking maybe I didn't hear the music, and I was singing my own little song here.
Don't let you, oh, you defy gravity. You defy gravity. They say we aren't strong enough. We don't have what it takes. I say yeah, they're wrong enough, and we'll show them someday. They might have gravity on their side, but something's pulling us high. Got the potential to fly. Oh yeah, don't let them be what holds you back from this one incredible chance. They're lucky to have had a glance at you. Oh, you defy gravity. You defy gravity. You defy gravity. Yeah, yeah. At you, oh, you defy gravity.
There you go, boys. I'm just going to bring you back in almost as seamless as I left.
Did you get a coffee in that time too, then, Adam?
No, I've just grabbed a bottle of wine.
Oh, that's a feat.
Sorry.
Don't forget to stop sharing.
Oh, yeah, that could freak it all out, couldn't it?
Have you stopped sharing on Skype now?
There we go. There we go.
Right. Seamless.
You've
See.
finally done it, guys. You've finally done it.
That. Little bit of tips halfway through, but all good. We're there. Hopefully, I'm going to check chat, make sure I can be heard. But
I'm actually starting to like that song.
get out of here. That's just the dog. That's just as you're happy because of the dog.
I was just about to say the same thing, John. As I was reading the words, I was just like, you know what? I do like this song.
And since you mentioned the dog, I was going to pop in, but I dare not go near the house now after the last time I went in. Sorry, guys. For those who don't know, I got a new dog today, and he's in the house. And yeah, I don't know whether it's mayhem in there or not, but last time I went in, everything was cool, and I was shouted at for coming in and exciting him. So
What kind of dog?
I might be sleeping out here tonight.
What type? What kind of dog is it?
He's quite a big dog.
You're not going to find out, Nathan.
Yeah, that's about all you're going to get out of John.
He's a crossbreed. He's not a pedigree. He's a rescue dog, and he's absolutely beautiful.
Even as Nathan Wright can't. John has a taking the piss name for me, Beulah. But even we're not allowed to know the dog's name, so we're just going to refer to him as Beulah. So yeah, you got more detail than most there, Nathan. To be fair.
He's got loads of names: Muttley, Beulah, Buddy, Dog. Take your pick. He doesn't have an all caps name, so there's no point.
But you like Adam, so he likes those names.
Are we back then?
Yeah. Right, let's just hand over to the man. Zach, if you let us know whenever you want out doing,
Yeah, we could.
we'll do it.
I'm ready. I'm ready to roll. Well, today we're going to be talking about how the eye perceives light, or how I shouldn't say the eyeball, any optical system with a circular aperture will see light and what actually happens along the horizon and why it happens. It's well understood science. It is taught in every first year physics class. It's mostly to do with astronomical observations. That's why they figured all this stuff out. But it also works wherever you're looking at, even along the horizon, even if you're looking down, even if you're inside in a room, this still takes place. It is a fundamental limitation of every lens with a circular aperture. So, could we start with looking at that Harvard document?
Josh, if you share screen it, I'll stick it over.
Yeah, give me just half a tick.
Damn, look at us. Getting organised, man.
Getting there. Not
We
quite
are
there.
getting there. We are getting there. It's taking a while.
Not as slick as Nathan.
Yeah, we'll have to take some lessons. You could write a textbook on that as well.
I get it all from YouTube.
Do we remember?
Isn't YouTube amazing?
Yeah, I think it is.
The new Library of Alexandria.
Until they
Video.
burn it.
Yeah.
Well, it's smouldering nicely in the background at the moment on the fringes of the flat Earth.
No, I'm not that
Off screen,
organized.
look, this looks good. Better pay attention.
Ooh, this is actually one of the later ones.
All right. Yes, I was going to say I'm not quite that organized as to having them in the correct order.
We're looking for the one. Well, we were going to look at the document first, I
Oh, you
believe.
do want the
Harvard
Rayleigh's criterion? I've got that. Sorry, right there.
Okay.
I've got that
You've
on a
got that
web
up.
page. Yeah. So let me just pull that back.
It's feeling a bit like Jaren on Globebusters when Bob's not around, gotta be honest.
No worries. Hey, if it's that good, we'll be chuffed. So thanks for the
okay.
compliment, mate.
No worries.
There you go. Right, I'll share screens. I'll just share screens with you guys, and you should be able to.
I heard that as sharing screams. Yeah, I think that's about right.
Is that working?
I don't think you've got that just right.
Oh no. Oh no, you need to. Why do I look at that? I can't see it.
Did we have this problem before, which was why I had we had to upload them to the network, the Iron Realm network?
Welcome to the Iron Realm Media Learn Along With Us episode. See how we cock it up so that you don't.
Yeah, I brought this in for Anthony, the Harvard document, just to show that this is, it's been well understood. You could actually type in just about any college and write in Rayleigh's criterion. That is the actual equation used to calculate for angular resolution limit. And just about every college will have a paper written on this. I can almost guarantee it in their physics department.
Well, I hope what you're about to say, I hope Al's listening and paying attention, because this, I don't know, actually, it might not relate to him at this point. This is getting quite far down the line. It's not Flat Earth 101, is it? It's kind of like intermediate level kind of stuff.
Well, it starts off that way, but when you get down to it, it's really going to be sort of maybe 102. This isn't really, this is kind of the advanced stuff, but I think what Zach is doing is just setting the stage for what's coming down the pike.
Could you scroll down a little bit, Adam?
I can.
There you go. Okay, right where it says comments there.
Yeah.
Rayleigh's criterion is usually applied to circular apertures where the criterion for resolution is when the center of one Aries disk pattern falls on the first minimum of the Airy disk pattern of the second source. The angular separation, radians, is then, that's what the symbol for radians is. And that's the equation right there. Radians equals 1.22 times wavelength of light over diameter of aperture. Very, very, like I said, they teach it in every physics class. Could you go down a little bit more? I think there's a little bit more. Oh, no, that's it. And that's all. I just wanted to show that it is in college papers. It is a real thing. They even show how to set up an experiment to show this right here. So
It's all quite self-explanatory, isn't it?
Yeah.
The diameter is the aperture that it's going through, is that right?
Yes. Yes. Now, I didn't bring up a slide for this, but how to find your diameter on, say, your camera. You would take the size of your lens, and then you would divide it by your aperture rating, your f-stop. So that's why, like the Nikons, the P900s, all of them, they have a smaller lens or a smaller sensor, so they can only go up to an 8 f-stop, where many other ones will go up to like 16, 22, things like that, and they can make their aperture even that much smaller. But since we have a smaller sensor on the P900, the aperture, the f-stop only goes down to 8, I believe.
And
That's the max.
essentially, putting that in real world language, the diameter would be the size of your pupil, if you're
Correct.
talking about the eye.
Yeah, the aperture is the circular hole that allows a certain amount of light to come in. And on cameras it changes, on your pupil it changes. Telescopes, not so much. They're usually set.
And
But,
doesn't this lend sort of credence to why possibly you could see further at night?
Absolutely, because your aperture, your pupil, opens wider at night. It can get up to about 8 millimeters, whereas if you're inside in a well-lit room, it usually ranges between 4 and 5 millimeters. And then if you're out at the beach on a sunny day and you're trying to focus at something far on the horizon, your pupil actually shrinks to cut out all the other light. And it can get down to about 2.5 millimeters, depending on your eye size and all that kind of different stuff.
And if you're off your head on drugs, then you can see to the end of the world with a
depending on which drugs you're on, right?
with a 2-inch diameter. Yeah, I'll shout.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into how we perceive light first. Could you bring up the number 1 slide with the red circular bullseye looking on it?
Is that the one with the airy disc on it?
Yeah. Let me take a look, and there we go. Okay, now this is what a light source looks like on a photon collector or whatever they call them. If you shoot a single pin source of light, it will make that Aries disk. Now this is how we see all light. As you can see on the right, it has the point spread function there on the bottom. Now, it almost looks like a drop in the water, doesn't it? But at that X line, right above where it says point spread function, you will not see anything below that X line. The only light that you will ever see are any of the humps that make it over that spot.
And it's called Aries disk because it was discovered by George Airy,
I believe, yes.
The astronomer royal of fame of Airy's failure.
Correct.
Wow.
And the neat part is we've all seen imagine looking at a candle and how you see that glowing, sometimes you'll even see 2 or 3 rings around it, just like we're seeing there. It's the same thing. If you put a point source, or if you're looking at headlights off in the distance, you'll usually see a big round circle around them. That is diffraction. That's what is taking place. Or the Aries disk, is taking place there. Because it appears to us to be a single source of light. And then as the car gets closer, you see the headlights separate, and you'll see 2 large circles around the headlight.
Yep.
Now, can we go to, I forget which one would be next. Do you have them in order, Adam?
Josh is in charge of this because it was beyond my techno.
Incoherent.
Let's see, I knew I should have wrote it down. I'm going to go to, give me 1 sec.
Is it clear so far to everyone?
So far, so good for me. I'm along.
Good stuff.
Okay, yeah, that's it.
That's the right
There
one.
we go. Yeah, number 4.
Yep, got it.
Yeah. Now this one is showing you what the light source kind of looks like, as you have two light sources there at the bottom, how they're perfectly separated, you have those lights would be perfectly resolved. You'd be able to resolve each of them, and you wouldn't get any diffraction there. Now, as you would move further back, you would see on D there that they start to kind of come together, but as you can see, the two maximums are clearly visible. That is the limit right there. That is the angular resolution limit of those two light sources. And then as you see to the right, that's what happens when the sources mend together, and you can no longer differentiate from one light source to the other. And they blur together. Can we go to the next one now?
Five.
Yeah. Is that
The clear sky chart.
no, not 5. Seven.
Incoherent and coherent light.
Yeah. Now this is actually showing you two light sources, how they are perfectly, it's the same as before, but now you get pictures to go with it. You have the two separate light sources, you see them getting closer together and kind of melt. If you turn it sideways, this is what the setting sun kind of looks like.
Yes. This is what you were showing in the warehouse, weren't you, with the torch?
Yep, this is exactly the same concept. The lights start coming.
It's almost what we've been calling the mirror band so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which never stuck. So wait for the real name to come shortly.
Ooh.
Now, if you think about it, when you're looking out, there is a ring around your head, a hula hoop, the kind that you would wiggle around your waist as a child. Think of holding one of those up, or it's attached to your shoulders, and it's up around and wherever you're looking, that is at 21 feet away. The average human eye is a 0.0165 something or other angular resolution limit. And they just say it's 0.02 to round it off. Now at 21 feet, that'll be about 2 millimeters, which is nothing, 2 millimeters blocking your view, no big deal. But then you get up to 3 miles, and if you have it at 0.02 instead of the like you would be squinting, which would be like a 0.038, then you're already talking about over 4.5 feet, almost 5 feet. So
that wouldn't be visible, is that what you're saying?
Would not be visible, yeah. You could not distinguish one light from the other. At 3 miles away, 5 feet along your horizon that you're looking at would be blurred.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not, you can't see it, it's just you can't distinguish anything.
Exactly. It's that diffraction band, you guys call it.
Well, you can't resolve it.
Yes.
Your eye can't physically resolve it.
But if you pull out a bigger lens, like a P900 camera, and now look at it, the whole image will come back into place because you have lowered your angular resolution limit by having a bigger diameter.
Mm-hmm.
Should we go to the next one? Let me see.
Pretty sure I have them numerically.
6, I believe. This is that one you pulled up.
With the apples?
Yeah. This just kind of shows how the human eye works. As the angles enter it, it's really showing you how the angles get smaller as things get away. This is how perspective works and why it works. It's all based on angles. Now, the apple is the same size, but as you can see, the angle when it's closer, they're saying is 20 degrees. And then as it gets further away, it turns into, 4 degrees? At 25 centimeters away? Now, these are experiments we all can do. And it just shows how perspective works with the human eye. And it's all based on angles. It's pretty simple. Okay, can we go to the next one? No, is it 5? There we go. No, not 5. I think you had it. Yeah, I think you had it. 9. Yeah. Resolution and the Rayleigh criterion. I actually brought this one in after I was going to do the after I plan on doing the Harvard one, or before I plan on doing the Harvard one, just to show the radians equals 1.22 times wavelength of light over diameter. Now, I should have brought something in that explained the 1.22, but I'll explain it to you, and if you don't believe me, you can go look it up. Rayleigh came up with 1.22 to be a perfect oxygen oxygen based atmosphere, because atmospherics play such a huge role in affecting this that they had to only come up with a limit. That's why they don't have a chart for this. They could only make a limit because the atmosphere can affect it so tremendously. So the 1.22 is a oxygen or nitrogen oxygen based atmosphere. And to give you some scale, 1 would be a perfect vacuum, and 1.33 would be considered pure water, distilled water. So it's not like you don't really fiddle with that number too much there. Astronomers and stuff, they'll mess with the little d, the diameter. Okay, we can go to the next one. Two, I believe.
Zach, just while they right again. So that's numbers not. It's derived as an optical clarity measurement, isn't it? It's not.
Absolutely.
It's not like where we're talking refraction or anything like that. It's to do with the optical clarity of the medium.
Absolutely. That's why it's just it was all done in a lab, and they did it in a nitrogen oxygen based atmosphere with no humidity, no dust, or they try to make it as clean and pure as possible when doing this. That's why it's the limit, because as soon as you start adding more things into it, that angle that is being obscured along your horizon just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Now this is how atmosphere affects our vision. This is called a meteorological optical range chart. Actually, could we get the other one first? I should have pulled that one. Yeah, right there. Number 3. There we go. This is the meteorological optical range chart. As you can see, it starts off with 0 being dense fog. You can see less than 50 yards. And it goes through all the different ones, and it goes up to exceptionally clear. You can see over 27 miles, I guess, nautical miles. Yeah. Which is about 30 some odd miles. 30, I'm not sure.
Yards, I think it is. 27 yards.
No, look, John, it switches from yards to nautical miles. After between 3 and 4, it switches to nautical miles.
Okay. Oh, yeah, so it does.
Yeah, and as you can see, I mean, exceptionally clear, you barely ever see that setting. I've been keeping an eye on this stuff. Very clear is rare. You have to have special conditions to get these. This is when you get the exceptional pictures, like that one I got out on Chicago that one day. That was just, I've never, ever seen it like that. And I got very lucky on that one. Okay, can we go to the next one? The next one shows the, this is what astronomers use right here. You can find these at every observatory, at least I know, in the United States. They have these, they're called astronomical seeing charts. Now it shows you on the left there, if you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different things that they use. They have 4 for the sky and then 3 for the ground. In the sky, you have your clouds, what they call transparency. Now, seeing, that's the weird one. Seeing is, since the air is a fluid, it's not, there's all kinds of stuff happening in the air. And you have to think of it like running water. When running water isn't moving very fast, you can see pretty well through it. You can see everything happening on the bottom of a very short, shallow river. Now, once it starts picking up and moving faster, you'll notice ripples, and eventually you get to white water where you don't see anything on the bottom. That's what seeing is. It's the movement and fluidity of the air affecting what you can see. And then, of course, darkness, light pollution, things like that. Then on the ground, of course, you have your wind that can mess things up, your humidity, and your temperature. And I didn't bring it in here, but of course, I mean, it's pretty blatantly obvious. The closer you get to the horizon, the more things will be obscured. They won't even take measurements. I believe it's 25 degrees. It might be 30, but they will not collect data while looking through their telescopes at anything below 25 to 30 degrees because they can't count on it as being accurate because the atmosphere is going to affect it that much. All right, can we go to the next one? Yeah, we'll do this one. Okay.
This is where we're at. I don't think there's many left if that's the case.
No, this is it. It's a short presentation. We're not going to get too in-depth in anything. Does everybody kind of understand everything so far? Pretty common sense?
Yep.
All right. Now, this is showing your human eye is there on the left. You can't really see the circle, but the center of the cross right there on the left, that's the center of your human eye. All the light is going to come through, and then it is going to crisscross and project onto the sensor in the back of your eye. So everything really looks upside down to us, and our brain flips it back over and corrects it for us. Now, what I've done here, all these lines are the exact same distance apart, and I've made the top further away from the eyeball than the bottom. And then the yellow triangle in the center coming out, the two angles, the angle above and the angle below, that is your angular resolution limit. Now, it will always be equal, above and below your horizon line. Your angular resolution limit will spread evenly, up and down. Now, as you notice, if you can see, I didn't draw that circle very well, but you can tell by just looking at the lines, the angles on the bottom, as you go further and further away, they are closer together than the angles at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we kept drawing these lines and keep going out, as you see, the angles are all getting closer and closer and closer to that angular resolution limit. Now, once all these angles enter that limit, nothing in there can be seen. That whole red line will be gone. Now, the reason buildings disappear and boats and all that stuff bottom first is usually because there's something higher than your eyesight, further away, elevated than your eyesight, than you are from the water. So as you're looking out, the angles at the bottom will converge with the angular resolution limit quicker than the angles at the top, making them disappear first. And it's that simple. I hope.
And this is what you're saying is mathematically or
absolutely
showing that this is why the bottom of things goes before or disappears before the tops of things. Is that right? It's because you what's above the horizon is generally larger than what's below the horizon. Is that something to do with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Correct.
Gotcha.
So every single flat surface, everything will still disappear from the bottom up and look as though it's going over a curve?
As long as the top part is further away from your eye than the bottom, yeah. Otherwise, if they're equal, it'll kind of just dissolve evenly, and you won't see it all at the same time. You won't have anything up. Now, if you notice, if you were to lower that eyeball, all those angles would get much sharper, like Ranty was doing with his photos. You know, he'd be sitting there looking at a boat, and then he would go down near the water, and the whole bottom of the boat would disappear. That is because it's not curved. It's because those angles there at the bottom have entered the angular resolution limit now.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
and what are we calling this?
This is Airy's diffraction.
Airy's diffraction. It's discovered by Airy's, and it's diffraction. But I said to you, when you told me, I was like, oh God, not diffraction again. And you said there's 6 different types of diffraction or something along those lines. Can you explain that? Because,
Well, it has to do with the circuit. Some happen on the outer edge of the circular aperture. Others happen on the inside edge of the circular aperture. Some happen when you're looking at an object and light is shining over the edge of it. I mean, there's many types of diffraction. It's really interesting, but this one, Airy's diffraction, is when you're focusing on something, it's going to be right in the center of what you're viewing. That's why I believe when Ranty had some of those where he pointed his camera up and the center of the building, the bottom was all clear and you could see them really well, but the center of the building kind of looked distorted there. I believe that's where his angular resolution limit was pointing at. It was up a little bit.
That's really interesting.
Now, the yellow line there, the yellow triangle, it doesn't go off straight like that. The only time it does that is if you have a perfect nitrogen-oxygen-based atmosphere. So you have to think of it as almost curving. It's going to go out and it's going to curve and open up kind of like a trumpet would at the end.
Sorry, is it inappropriate to ask a couple of questions, or did you?
No. Shoot away.
Please, yeah.
Okay. The first thing was you said that the angular resolution limit line, I don't know what else to call it, in Ranty's picture was forced up the frame. So, correct me if I'm wrong, that proves that he is looking up at those buildings. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes.
That was the first.
That's important.
Okay, the second thing is, on the picture I can see on my Skype page, I hope it's, it is going out to the audience. So, if you imagine along, this is going to be a right butchered job in terms of conceptualizing it. If you imagine the very bottom line you've drawn was waves, yeah, and there were.
Oh yeah, definitely. They would come up and obscure.
But bear with me, because what I'm going to say is, say we draw the waves halfway up that bottom section, so the bottom third where you've got all those lines going down. Well, if it was halfway up that line, would it reach a point where the wave, because of that angle narrowing, could then intersect the midpoint, or would that never happen?
It could, but it would probably be far off in the distance, unless you were very low to the ground. Then the waves,
you're talking 1 inch.
Yeah, the waves could be obscuring it instantly, and you wouldn't even see any of the distortion on the bottom because the waves would be cutting it off. It might even take off some of the top of your angular resolution limit.
That's kind of
looking straight into it.
If you're standing at the beach and you've got a wave that's, let's make it a bit bigger. Let's make it 3 foot, yeah, and you're holding your camera at 5 foot, yeah. Well, then the first angle is obviously way over the top of the wave. It's nowhere near intersecting the midpoint. But as you go further out into the distance, looking further and further, that wave, which is obviously below you physically right at the shore, is it more likely to dissect the midpoint as you reach the point of convergence?
No, not the one that is very close to you.
No,
it would be a wave. Yeah, it would be a wave.
I mean the waves that are on the far right of this picture.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
By virtue of it being raised up towards the midpoint, therefore a 2 foot wave, because obviously between you and, let's say, 10 miles out, they're all going to be 2 foot waves. But as you get further out, that 2 foot wave is far more likely to intersect the midpoint because it's further out and been risen up with convergence, correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Cool. because that's another reason why a 2-foot swell can obscure things from the bottom up. It seems like when you've got it in the perspective omitting proof of nothing curve calculator, a 2-foot wave's just a 2-foot wave, but it's a meaningless value when you're looking at things with angles.
And the real interesting part about all this is that no curvature calculator adds angular resolution limit to it. So if you're looking at the horizon and you're seeing up to the edge of the curve, you should have to add the top of the angular resolution limit. You would cut it in half and at least add the top of that to whatever you're looking at off in the distance, which would almost completely negate the whole 7/6R nonsense that they try to throw out.
Explain that again, Zach. Just.
Yeah, go for it. Really dumb.
When you okay, say you know how they have us looking at the curved Earth, and they always have our eye line up against the curve.
Yeah.
Saying that we're like looking down a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, if we're doing that, they should have to add the little yellow line we see in the center. They would have to add the top part of that at least, the amount that it would be distorted.
Okay, I've got you. Yeah,
to the object off in the distance.
I've got to point this out. That's what they've hijacked. So they've figured out that line is a, let's call it in quotation marks, refraction. And that's the value they take you to, because that is where you're looking. You are looking at the top of the bulge, regardless of how clear the day is. And that top of the bulge, if it's got something you shouldn't be seeing, that's being miraged up 7/6R, right? When you're in that figure, the refracted figure, the one that's at the horizon, well, then it's sensible to hijack that and put it into an area that you've got highlighted in yellow now that is a band of refraction. It doesn't then matter so long as that figure is a refracted figure and what you're seeing is refraction. It all makes logical sense, right?
Yeah, it's one of the ways they fooled us all.
Yeah, it's how they've swindled it. They've swindled us by getting us to look at a refracted value that sits in an area of angular limitation.
I did a little bit of calculation here for a angular resolution limit of a human eye that is, I think I did 3 millimeters. It might be 2.5, but an angular eye or something that's looking at miles away. I started at 3 miles. I did 3, 5, 10, 20, and 40 miles. Just showing that with the angular resolution limit, like if you're squinting, looking at the horizon, trying to block out as much of the extra light as you can, at 3 miles, it would already be 9.68 feet that you could not make out along the horizon. So if there was a boat, and you're 6 foot up and you're looking at a boat 3 miles away and you're catching it right on the curve where they say the curve would be, you still should not make out 4.5 feet at least of the bottom of that boat.
Zach, how'd you work that out? I mean, is that an easy calculation? Could you off the cuff do 30 miles?
Yeah, 30 miles. Oh, let's see.
Sorry.
No, I didn't do 30. It shouldn't be too hard though. Let's see. 5 miles is 16.1 feet. 10 miles is 35.6 feet. Isn't that interesting? Because at 10 miles, at 5 feet up, they say there's 35 feet of blockage on the other shore.
Are you giving us the refracted hidden figures by any chance?
Yeah, that was the or no, and 10 miles, 35 feet. This is all at 5 feet off the water as well. These are the angular resolution limit only right here. This is the minimum that will be blocked. 20 miles, 64 feet. You're not going to make out along your horizon. Leave limit. So it only goes up when you start adding particulate, moisture, humidity, all kinds of stuff like that into the air. It just gets bigger and bigger.
The only reason I ask is because I've my personal experience of seeing the Isle of Portland from Seaton 30 miles away, and I know the Isle of Portland. Well, I don't know, but the Isle of Portland is purported to be just under 500 foot tall. But there is, on the day that I went, there is a band running along the horizon that obscures a certain part of it. Now, some people are saying, yeah, that's obscuring, 480 foot, and all you're seeing is 20 foot or whatever, and that to me is just ludicrous. But yeah, just to get a ballpark on 30 miles away as to what would be hidden would be quite cool to measure it up
I believe
against.
it's right around 90.
Okay.
I
90 foot. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Have you got more slides to go? I'm itching to congratulate you.
That was it. That was the.
Well, I want to ask a question as well.
Absolutely fantastic demonstration. This is superb, Zach. If you can, I'd love you to present it on the debate at some point. I'd make a big space for you. But that was glorious. I'm smiling here to it.
Everybody understood.
So
I
many
just hope it's
questions.
understandable to everybody.
I concur. I think it's awesome. I mean, it blew me away on Wednesday, and Adam's stuff blew me away even more. It is equally as much. I mean, it's we're getting onto that, aren't we, Adam?
No, not tonight. Don't worry about that. It's just
Hey, Tony, you said you had some questions?
This is
Yeah. Zach, are you familiar with the phrase Poisson's spot?
No.
Poisson's spot is an issue that I don't know what the answer is, but it's basically where a spherical object passes in between a light source and a wall that you would cast the shadow onto. So in other words, you've got a light, i.e. the sun, casting light onto a canvas, i.e. the earth, and if the moon passes in front of it, moon spherical, a Poisson's spot should be formed on the earth. Now, obviously, they tell us that there's a path where the moon passes, like as the moon passes in front of the sun, it creates the path of totality. But Poisson's spot is a small dot in the middle of the path of totality, where for some reason light is emanated or concentrated or focused in on that little spot in the middle. And it's the best way to describe it is if you threw a dart into a dartboard and got it bang in the middle, the little hole that it would create is like the Poisson's spot, but it's a focal point of light. And the bizarre thing about it is, for some reason, they say that it's due to Fresnel diffraction, but somehow there can be a shadow of a circular object, and in the middle of the shadow should be this Poisson spot, which is the focal point for Fresnel diffraction. And because of that concept or that phenomena, what it means, I know this is a little bit off topic, but in the context of diffraction, it's there. We should see when there's a solar eclipse, we should see a Poisson spot in the middle of totality, the path of totality, and we don't seem to see it, and it's just bizarre. Yeah, you can see it on the screen now. So if you look at the diagram on row 3, or the top row, top left-hand corner, you've got like the projector light, and you've got the moon in the middle between the target and casting the shadow onto the canvas. Poisson's spot sits right in the middle, and for some reason it puts light there due to Fresnel diffraction, but we don't see it when the moon passes in front of the light from the sun. But there should be a Poisson spot there, and it's caused by diffraction. And now I'm not quite
I am going to experiment with this, because I think I've created this already when I was playing with shadows, and how I could make shadows smaller and bigger using Fresnel lenses. I believe I have seen this already. I'm gonna have to go back and look at my videos. If not, I'll set it up again, and I'm gonna make this.
And it's interesting you say that, Tony, is that we don't see it in. You're talking about a solar eclipse, right?
Sure.
And there's numerous other phenomena we don't see in a solar eclipse, like, for example, I mean,
an umbra and a penumbra,
and things like we've had not just cameras pointed at the sun, other equipment like solar thermal cameras and things like this pointed at the sun, and it just doesn't seem to be a moon going in front of it.
I totally agree. I argued that point and I got ridiculed by the ballers. But it's called all the photography guys are all trying to capture Earthshine, which is obviously the bouncing of light off Earth back onto the moon, and then the camera lens picking it up. And it's called the holy grail of photography because it can't be done, apparently. It's so difficult to get, right? But it's almost like chasing unobtainium. It's like the question isn't so much can it be caught, or not. No, sorry. The question is so much like, have they caught it, or who's ever caught it? The question is, can it be caught? Because I agree with you. Everything that I looked into on that solar eclipse.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anybody with a real one.
The only person.
Yeah, I was going to say, moonshine's easy. You just get a copy of Photoshop.
Well, yeah, I mean, the only person that caught evidence of Earthshine was Soundly, right?
Exactly. Say no more.
All the astronomical societies all around the world were all trying to get the same thing, right? We had a guy from somewhere Blackburn way, Lancashire way. It's called Stephen Cheatley, that flew out to America with all of his equipment, and he wasn't trying to get Earthshine, as far as I can tell, because of the camera settings that he had. Because apparently, according to one of the ball earthers, he had his camera set up on ISO 400, which, according to them, would be nowhere near strong enough to capture Earthshine. But then, when you check what camera settings were set up on this camera at the time, he had 400, ISO 400. So it was impossible that he could have caught it the way that he did. Apparently, he overexposed it and done some trickery that all the astronomical societies and the photographic societies weren't able to do. And they've all been doing it for years, and nobody's ever caught it because it's called the Holy Grail of... And obviously, the Holy Grail is basically nobody can ever capture it, right? But not all of these...
I'm pretty sure that Soundly's... photos were, in quotation marks, obviously, were taken apart and shown to be highly anomalous. Was that on Globebusters or Paul on the Plane or something?
There was me, Chris Monk Sally, and Mike Helmick. By independent research, we were all working on what Soundly had done, because we realised that there was no way that this guy's got what he's claiming. And when we realised that there were other people that were doing it, we all got together and basically said to each other, right, what did you get? And the answer was, there was no evidence, because what we did was, we were in Sun and Moon group at the time, and we asked people to, wherever you were in America, take your pictures, send them to us, and let's collate them all, and let's go through them with some element of forensic attack, see if we could scrutinise and challenge everybody's pictures to see was there any evidence whatsoever of the moon being there. Because the claim was, or the projection was, we don't think the moon passes in front of the sun. We think it might go behind. And we're trying to establish, is there any evidence to support the idea that the moon passes in front of the sun? And we got nothing, absolutely nothing from... There was about 150 photos. I could link you the Google Drive, and you can look through them yourself. There's no evidence whatsoever of any of them. Now, it was about 35 people all over America with different cameras, with different settings, with different positions and different everything. Not one person got any evidence of the moon passing in front of it, right? Now, that doesn't mean... Yeah, of course. But that doesn't mean that it didn't pass in front of it. But it means that when Soundly claims that Earthshine, he managed to get it, right? Now, bearing in mind, he actually told us at the time that he didn't have enough space on his SD card to do any long exposures or to do anything more than basic rudimentary photographs, right? And that was his reason for why he didn't get certain photos. But 2 weeks later, and Bob from Globebusters he's the witness to it. 2 weeks later, he turns up with photos from the totality point, and I'm like, you told us 2 weeks ago that you didn't have enough of a SD card space on your SD card to take these photos. So why is it you've now turned up with them? And he honestly, well, I don't know whether he honestly forgot about it or whether he deliberately deceived. But point was, he told us he didn't even take them. But 2 weeks later, he releases a video saying that was exactly one of his intentions, to try and capture Earthshine. And I'm like, hang on a minute, you told us 2 weeks ago that you didn't have enough space on your card. So that's complete nonsense. And he's faked it. Honestly, he's the dodgiest person in Ball Earth, but he never gets challenged on it by the ballers. They all think he's wonderful, and I'm like, really? Do you not see the problem with this? At 16 miles, you've got your Pontchartrain showing more curve than a basketball. And then Ranty's got 18-mile observations, very similar mileage, and he's got it flat as a pancake. So it should be consistent, right? We should see similarities between the pictures, and we shouldn't have straight lines on Ranty's if we've got this bendy line that's got like a basketball on Soundly's. It cannot be. Soundly should be getting the same as Ranty. Ranty should be getting the same as Soundly, and we're not getting it. So something's not right.
With regards to Ranty's work, right, on what Zach was saying, Nathan, it was one of the first things Nathan said. In terms of what Zach was saying, in terms of Ranty's stuff being proven to be angled upwards, Zach, can you just fill on that? Because that's I think that's, if that can be demonstrated optically, that pictures of Ranty's are angled upwards, because you can demonstrate where the zone is in the image, and therefore demonstrate it's being angled up. That really is a proper ball killer, isn't it?
This is why astronomers were the ones who developed this, because they're always looking up, and that wherever they're pointed, they did it so they could tell how well they could resolve two stars that were close together. So as they point there and they aim it at one star, that angular resolution limit in the center may make two stars become one. Now, wherever you're pointing it at, that's where the obscurity is going to be. Wherever your eye is focused at, that's where the angular resolution limit is going to happen. So in his picture, as he looked up, all the angles on the bottom became larger now, because he was raising up that angular resolution limit. So all those angles at the bottom started getting bigger, which allowed him to see more along the bottom. But you could see in the center of his picture, the buildings, they went straight, and then they got kind of wavy, and then they went straight again. And that is where that band of diffraction took place. Is that understandable?
Yep, perfectly.
Good. Yeah, it's like I said, they've done such a good job at making the curve based on this, like almost based on our vision.
Yeah.
Right, so
It's reverse engineering, isn't it, Zach?
Yeah.
I reckon.
What's this? What's the crack with this curvilinear perspective? Have you come across that, Zach?
Curvilinear perspective.
Basically, it's the idea of turning a normal photograph. Imagine if you take a normal photograph, but you take it through a glass crystal or a crystal ball that a fortune teller uses. All the straight lines become curves. There's no straight lines in it anymore. Everything's artistically curved. But I've heard one or two people talking about this concept called curvilinear perspective, and our eyeballs are acting like this. And I just thought, that's absolutely garbage.
No, they do. You see in curved lines. It's just, now, Gav is going to get into this a lot. Gav and Glenn and Chris, the guys I'm making the Great Switcheroo with and that kind of stuff. Man, they have it all down to a science. And I couldn't even come close to explaining it as well as they do.
The table's the best way, Zach, I think.
Can you shout them out? I mean, have you got YouTube channels for them?
Gav, he's the one who's always on Del's a lot. He has a degree, I believe, in mathematics and physics. And his YouTube channel is Vortex Puppy, all one word, VortexPuppy. Glenn, he doesn't have as many videos and stuff like that, but he does have a YouTube channel. I believe it's Ordic, O-R, let me see, I have it written down right here, actually. I don't want to... Yeah, Orbic, O-R-B-I-C, Fud Pucker, F-U-D-P-U-C-K-E-R. And then the other, I love that name. And
He's
then
an
the
Ordic Fud Pucker.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then the other gentleman is, of course, is Chris Van Matre. What was that, Josh?
I said, is that anything like a fig pucker?
Or a fig pucker son.
Or a pheasant plucker.
And if anybody would like to, I don't know if you've all seen The Great Searcheroo, they get into it a little bit about the gentleman who discovered that we see with a circular eye on a flat plane. His name was Thomas Reed back in 1750. And not till 70 years later did they come up with spherical geometry that was based off of all the work he did. It was actually, what's his name? Gauss and his protege, Riemann, or what's his name? Oh, I forget. Gauss and his protege were the ones in 1820s who switched it all around. They took our eyes that see circular, and we were on a flat plane, so they just switched it. That's why they called it Great Switcheroo, because they made the plane a curve now, and they try to make us think that we see in a rectilinear fashion.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So tell me about Thomas Reid. How do I find him? Because there's a lot of names called Thomas Reid. Is it R-E-I-D? And he wrote, which Gav says is one of the greatest books, and everybody should be made to read it in, grammar school or maybe a little bit up, but it's called An Inquiry into the Human Mind on the Principles of Common Sense. And it is it's kind of hard to read. You might have to read it a few times because they wrote, it's such a beauty. It's like poetry.
Can you say that again, Zach? An inquiry into the human mind
on the principle of common sense.
I have it as a PDF. You can download it as a PDF, which I'll put a link in Skype to. You might want to post that in the main chat so people can see it.
Absolutely.
Have you read it?
Thank you.
No, not yet. I'm looking for a hard copy, and the cheapest one I can find is like $45.
I love reading these old books. It's just, there's something about them that is just immense. There's the way they can put what we say in a paragraph into one sentence so succinctly and fantastically. I mean, we are ultimately dumbed down these days, and you say it might be hard to read, and those are the books I like to read because it prompts me to go away and look up the words that I'm reading, because they're forgotten words, most of them, which is half the reason why we can't verbalize what we're trying to say. We're having so much trouble because we were never taught this language. We were never taught this, I can't remember what they call it now, nomenclature.
Yeah, this guy was the guy who... Okay, Nathan, look at a table in your room and tell me what shape it is. What shape is the table, the top?
Flat.
No, the shape of the actual table, is it round? Is it...
Rectangle?
Yeah.
It's a rectangle.
Is it, though?
Now, is the table rectangle, or is what you're viewing a rectangle?
Well, no, that's why I went silent, because I was trying to describe my vision.
This is the guy who, this is the guy who distinguished between a tangible object and a perceived object. Because the only way you're going to see it as a rectangle is from 90 degrees up, looking straight down. When we look at it, it's kind of tilted to the side, and they're all parallel lines, but the angles may be a little different, and this and that. He was the one who said this is a part of perspective that nobody has looked into yet. This is when you take this into consideration when you're measuring things, you have to take all of this stuff into consideration. You can't go and measure the tangible object and then stand away and think that you can measure it again just by looking at it.
But in a way, this is what Nathan and the crew have been reintroducing is the perspective angle of it. That things get smaller as they go away, which hasn't been included in the ball earth propaganda teaching. So it's in a way they're like the rectangle table. It's going to look like an oblong, not an oblong, but what is it? Rhombus,
zoid, or rhombus, or something
along those lines.
Yeah, depends on how you're looking at it. Yeah,
or parallelogram.
Yeah, depends on what angle you're seeing it from.
Well, this is it. It's more it's a step on from perspective, John, because it's the angular size reduction at distance obviously applies, but what Zach's describing is the viewing angle as opposed to just the angular size reduction at distance.
But I think is it not just the angular? I mean, the fact that when you look at a circular table, it looks like an oblong, and like they say, you can only see a circle when you're 90 degrees above it or perpendicular or whatever. What else is changing other than the angular resolution when you're looking at your viewing angle?
So if you imagine what they've tried to do, or what the path they initially tried to take us down, was to say that if you were standing 90 degrees to these turbines, the center of the hub, you would see them disappearing off in a straight line. Now, that very narrow circumstance is true, but it's the only one where they can have an exclusion of perspective. Now, beyond that point, which is obviously much more akin to reality, you've got not just the fact that the thing's smaller because it's far away. When you're looking at the turbines, are a good example of this. If you're completely level with the bottom of it, say you're 6 foot off the ground, well, you've got a directly straight line to the bottom section, but to the top section, you've got a completely different angle, and it's varied all the way up the length of that wind turbine. Now, if you then take 3 steps to the left, you've completely changed your viewing angle to all of it just by taking 3 steps. But that's the angular size reduction has remained the same. It's still the same size in the distance, but your viewing angle has completely altered your view in the same way my table will change from being, the line that's closest to me, because the table's offset in my view. The line closest to me on the near edge is almost straight, whereas the angle on the other one is coming in towards a perspective line. So they're completely different angles.
Yeah,
but I got you. Them to be symmetrical by looking to it 90 degrees. So it's about viewing angle as opposed to just the angular size reduction. I hope I've summarised that reasonably well.
No, very well. Yeah, I'll get it.
Yeah, there's so much I still have to learn about all this stuff. But I think we're finally starting to get a grasp on how they tricked us and how it all works, and we're getting there.
The diagrams were brilliant. I mean, I could visualize in those two, I don't know how to describe them, the 2 nipples that are coming up from the ground. You can see that what you are detailing in that graphic depiction is how those 2 things merge into one. That is that band. That is precisely what we see.
Yeah, the way I see it is, or the way I envisage it is like the retina on the back of the eye is like a TV screen with pixels, and if you look on a TV screen at 2 points of light, say a car headlights, then it's clearly visible as it's close up. It's clearly visible as 2 separate lights, but as the car either reverses or you zoom out, then those pixels become closer and closer together until you're left with 2 pixels depicting the 2 lights, and then it goes just a little bit further where 2 pixels is too much, and it turns into 1 pixel. Is that?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, angular size limitation.
And there is actually that limitation on our eyes. That from what I read, we see in 1.2 megapixels. The human eye is the equivalent of 1.2 megapixels. So that
50 millimeter lens. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
But with the paint cans example, when Zach did that, because the camera's essentially a matter of millimeters, the bottom of the lens is millimeters off the ground, that angle is so small that you don't have to go very far back to get this effect. So in other words, this is really, I don't want to say it's easy to replicate in the small scale, that's demeaning what Zach's done, but you can replicate this in the small scale relatively easily by getting your camera very, very close to the ground, and therefore you shorten that lower angle.
It was done by Phuket Word with the cigarette lighter across the park. He had it on a perfectly level concrete play area. Anyone remember that?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, that's what gave me my idea. I started mine with a lighter as well, with marks on it. That's
Right.
the very first diffraction test I did.
Right, and he was showing kids sort of wearing flip-flops across the other side of a play area, and their feet were being mirrored. And this was over a space of, say, 50 yards. So, yeah, like you're saying, Nathan, it's absolutely demonstrable, even on a short scale. It doesn't have to be 30 miles, 50 miles, or anything along those lines. It's just a known phenomenon that they clearly knew about and disguised.
Yeah, I mean, the converse, if people were thinking, well, what's the globe side of this argument? When Zach's done it in small scale, there is no difference, relatively speaking, to a big, massive observation over a huge body of water. There's just a camera, a target, and a big expanse. But with the
Taboo...
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, Taboo Conspiracy actually made a video after I did that one of a sunset that he did, and he showed the pictures were almost exactly alike. My sun setting and a real sun setting.
That's right, side by side, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic.
So that's the typical flat earthy way of doing things. It's a camera, it's very simple, it's cheap, and that's what we do. Whereas the ballers will say, well, no, what's actually happening is stuff is being refracted back around the curve 76R, and then they'll go to completely wild explanations with liquid butane or heating up the air with 1,000-degree candle flame. You know, they'll try and distort things with these outrageous, and the scale will go down, but the thing that they're manipulating with will go vastly off the charts, you know.
Yeah, nothing that we see in the real world.
Yeah, we don't live in liquid butane, and we don't, you know, we're not all, you know, there isn't a row of 1,000-degree candles between us and our target. You know, it's ludicrous, but that's what they'll do to try and...
The liquid butane one makes me laugh, Nathan, because they show that and they keep getting that little bit of red popping up, but you can see how limited the effect is. If you look at the top of the green thing, that never moves once, even though there is significant cold air from the butane around it, but it doesn't bend that.
It squashes the red plasticine up into the area that was formerly occupied, but the stuff at the top doesn't move a bloody inch, you're right.
So it shows you how extreme it has to be.
Second.
Yeah.
It happens for like that. When we see mirages, quotation marks, in real life, that lasts for hours. You know, I don't understand how they can explain that. They say it's a mirage, but yet it doesn't move, and it sits there for hours. No atmosphere anywhere.
Very, very interesting part of the debate, actually, because this is where we get a big win. Because when they model refraction, they're modeling terrestrial refraction, 76R. They've got all their parameters laid down, and it's relatively simple for them to bend in perfect symmetry stuff back around the curve with a ray tracing program or a big paddle. They can go, there you go, there's what it should look like, and it looks just like your photograph. But then when you actually get down to what they've hijacked, the circle of confusion, this band with a fold line running down the middle, exactly like you showed on your paint cans. Oh, no, they can't model that. Actual effects of refraction. I've got to stop calling it. It's not refraction. It's diffraction. Sorry, I've got to get the term.
It's on screen now, Nathan, actually.
Aries diffraction, to be precise.
Yeah, because there are 6 different types of diffraction with a circular aperture. So yes, Aries diffraction would be the most precise terminology.
Excellent.
We like precise terminology.
Yes, indeed. Aries diffraction is your actual culprit, and they're not ever accounting for the effects that it may cause on a particularly clear day if something is at that limit.
Mm-hmm. I've never seen a calculator that applies it.
No, they can't, because what they'd have to do, I mean, well, they may be able to do it, but the mathematics would be immense. You know, it's not something anybody could ever do on a piece of paper on the fly, because you're having to bend a diffraction effect into terrestrial refraction 7.6 around a presupposed radius of an Earth. You know, it gets to the point where it's too challenging to do. And I said this the other day on one of the debates to one of them. I said, you won't ever do it. I think it was Ruhif. You won't ever replicate this.
Yeah, isn't it nice to be able to say that with such authority and know that they can't?
They won't ever.
So where does this leave us then? What have we taken from this to bring us forward?
Well, we've now demolished the ground-based part of the heliocentric deception. So, obviously, we talked with the teacher that Anthony was talking to about where his cognition took him immediately when asked for scientific evidence, which is space and the air-based part of the deception. Well, that's been, no offence to all the hard work that's been put into that, but it has been done to death. People have ripped that to shreds. Whereas what you've got in practical terms that you can do on the ground is go to their begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective omitting curve calculator and put in your observation. And when you do so, what you actually get spat out is perspective. So they've hijacked perspective and called it Earth curve. That's what we've discovered.
And we're showing that it's not perspective, or it is perspective, but it's also angular resolution. It's also all these other factors that they just gloss over. They don't include it.
I think they do include it. So I sound like I've contradicted almost everything you've said.
That's all right.
They do include it. I think what they've done is they've taken every aspect, not necessarily the last one, which is what Zach's gone through, which is the actual angle of attack or the angle to target, whatever you want to phrase it as. But with the exception of that, because I will detail that as well, and then I'll go on to my point, which is to say that they angle the camera down by essentially anchoring the camera at the target position. You can slide it along in their calculator on the graphical depiction, but ultimately what that's doing is it's anchoring a point that your camera is looking at, and then as you go up in altitude you'll see that point remains the same. So that's how they've kind of got around that particular detail. So they have kind of included that by just saying, well, no, you're always looking down. You're always looking down at the horizon, and then therefore down at all the stuff that's beyond the curve.
Yeah.
But all of the other aspects do seem to have been, included to a certain degree in the calculations, so they've got all sorts of different areas that they can pick out of the calculator when they need to. So I think they've co-opted many different aspects of it into the calculator, so they've got a sort of one-stop shop best fit for almost every piece of photography that you can try and throw at that calculator. So the win really is that you can point out, and in time I'm sure it will be the case that people will be doing these more complex accounts of what you're seeing and how you're seeing it based on a lot of information, but it will be all encompassing of perspective, certainly not Earth curve, because there isn't any.
Can't wait for those experiments.
Say again?
It can only get better. I can't wait for those experiments now, because people are going to get this. Anyone with an open mind and a scientific mind is going to get this and be able to test it. So I can't wait for that.
Indeed.
Did you not bite there, Nathan? I thought you was going to bite there. They were in separate sentences, so
two contradictions one after the other. I think I'll just let that one slide.
What, did I commit a faux pas?
Nothing at all. Absolutely nothing.
It is what they're doing in terms of definition of science and experiments, like what we was talking with John Quantum about this week sort of stuff. But,
you led me up, Adam, you bugger.
I was just surprised. You went...
Well, I'll just take it away from
Did I walk into a bear trap? Sorry, I've
it's all right.
put in my mouth, haven't I?
Well, I'll just blame someone else. So Grant Campbell, flat out elected, was recently saying, in his way, I won't even try and do the voice, but saying it's all science's fault, and, you know, science has lied to us, and these scientists this and all the rest of it. And science is on our side. You know, they don't have scientific evidence for any of this stuff. Science is a very narrow thing. But to give themselves credibility, the people who lie to us, mostly pseudoscientists, they will hijack that term to give themselves more credibility. And I had to pull up Ranty earlier today, and he's saying, oh, I'm going to go out and do this, that, and the other experiment. I'm like, oh, it's not an experiment, Ranty. In fact, it was Ruhif again who called him on it, you know, before he'd finished his breath. I was waiting for a pause in the the sentence from Ranty to say, actually, that's not an experiment, and Ruhif did it for me, and I had to agree with him. It's like, well, no, you're just making an observation, Ranty. You're not adhering to the scientific method, so don't hijack that term. You said experiment, John, so that was all it was.
No, I'm more than happy to be pulled up on any faux pas I make, because I just don't have the time to keep up with this stuff. It's changing every day. I mean, it's so fluid. It's unbelievable that you can really make a faux pas from one day to the next. It's great. So yeah, keep correcting me, and I'll more than happily adjust how I talk about things. It's like my phobia against the word gravity.
Planet.
Well, the great thing about this week is all the thinking, and it's gotten me going down so many different rabbit holes looking at this idea, this light, this whole thing. I found a video, I dropped it in the Skype chat, kind of just with what we talked about on our pre-show with the concept about the points of light and what you were talking about with the presentation, Zach. I was trying to find something to kind of tie that together with the slit experiment and the particle versus waves and how we still really don't even understand what the hell light is, and found this crazy video about somebody doing some experiments with a laser and some nails, and it's pretty interesting what they caught. He's actually, I guess he's still a glober because he goes off into some spacey stuff there at the end, but the images they were able to catch, pretty interesting.
Who's the producer? Who's the videographer?
I'm trying. I think it's the Roger guy from Mud Fossil is who put the video up, but who actually did the experiment. He says it in the video. I don't have it right on the top of my head. I just found this yesterday. While, like I said, our pre-show Wednesday had everybody just blown away with what Zach and Adam were talking about and what they're talking about here. We were just. I went YouTube researching. You know how that is. How you get lost down those rabbit holes real quickly.
Do you want to do that ramble then? Because this is, John's mentioned it, and it's nothing special. It's just a little thought I was having.
Absolutely, because it to me fits all this. Because while we're looking at all of this, we still have to understand why this light is doing what it is and what the hell it is. Because what they're telling us it is obviously is a bunch of BS.
I really want you to cover it, Adam, because it kicked me in the nuts big time, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic in the way.
It's not scientific.
I don't care. I don't care. It's testable.
Where's Quantum? I saw he was in chat earlier.
It's testable.
I don't know how I can show it. Josh, how do I show this? I have to go to Skype. That won't work, will it? No, I can't do it.
It made it made sense to the magnetic declinations that you see on maps, and that someone was saying, at certain points, if you look up these magnetic declinations, it will say when you're looking east, you should adjust 180 degrees and say and correct yourself so that you're looking essentially west. And the graphics that you brought up on Wednesday were, it was just like, it was that game of Tetris again for me.
Right, exactly.
Not that you can bring them up now, of course.
No, I've been a bit of a tease. I can't do it because I've only got one PC
here's the problem.
running.
I just saw a note from Josh. He actually had to step away for a second. So if he's tied into your presentation abilities, then we're kind of
it's not that, mate. I can't share it whilst streaming the actual show.
How perfectly scripted is this? See, complete.
Do I have the?
I'm sorry. I did go to do it and then realised I have no technical capability. There is a way. I'll figure it out for next week because.
Cool. We'll save it now.
Yeah. How you tease?
I know. I'll show you I'll show you afterwards in the week.
Okay.
It's side porn.
Yeah.
Now I'm happy.
Now I've distracted
Made
you.
happy by Zach tonight, and yeah. Thank you, Zach.
To gain access, all you need to do is become a member of Iron Realm Media.
How do you do that?
Right?
And then you still won't gain access because we're useless.
Then all your tech stops working as soon as you do that.
Actually, John, the way you're saying that is a joke. It could actually be happening over there at the website because our wonderful llama friend has been doing some amazing work with our website, getting it up to speed. My goodness, it looks so much better.
Sounds good. Lovely.
It's my pleasure, Nathan. Thank you for being here, really.
Yeah, I love it when things that I keep saying, I don't have no real explanation for this, we'll call it dirty air. And then someone
Right. Hashtag dirty air.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I knew you guys would get it right off the top. You guys have been doing so much work on this, and then I knew it would click with you guys.
Going to count
That's
the
why I
name
wanted to-
drops next week, Zach. How many times they get in here?
Yeah, and that's one thing. I tried doing it, but my channel wasn't that big when I was doing it. But I was trying to get out there. Aries diffraction, look into Aries diffraction, and I just couldn't get people to look into it.
Well, that's
starting.
That's the good thing, isn't it? Right, that's going off now. We're working together. Look at tonight. You know what I mean? Look at what Nathan and Riley kicked off.
I know it.
We all had to catch. We had to catch up to you, Zach.
You guys will be past me in no time.
But just to have an expression or a name of Aries diffraction that someone can go, Aries what? And then go away and look it up. And it's actually a thing.
Yeah, I've been told
In
so
their
many
land.
times that I was making it up. There's no such thing as Aries diffraction.
Yeah, the best.
You're making up the word
weird
angular
name is,
resolution.
The best thing for a weird name is the Circle of Confusion. It is actually a thing. It's not something we called it.
Yeah, but now you've got a red nipple paint drop looking thing that proves it's real science, because you don't get them in pseudoscience. That diagram.
I still love Dirty Amy.
Hey, as long as you understand how it's happening, I don't care what you call it.
Well, you should really contextualise that because it sounds just like you're a filthy man. I love the Emmy.
It's not just that we can actually describe it in a less dirty old man kind of way, dirtier, but it's actually that demonstration, mate. It was brilliant, and thanks, pal. Going through it, a number of extra bits clicked, as you were talking about, as Nathan mentioned, the viewing. It really does help you understand what we're seeing and why we're seeing what we're seeing with some of the stuff that Ranty's been doing. A shame he's not here. You know what I mean? The work he's done and you guys have put on, it really did help understand that, because it's been bending my head how the hell that 1 foot observation, 1 inch observation was.
Well, I don't know where we're going or whether we've got other people joining us coming on or whatever, but if you guys
No, we're done.
no, I mean, if Anthony or Nathan want to share screens, if they've got visuals of what Ranty has been doing, then absolutely feel free. It may not work. Probably
No, I can
won't.
do that.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. I don't know if you guys have got sort of folders of some shots or screenshots or whatever of what Ranty has been doing, but I know for a fact it's some really interesting stuff.
What have you got?
I had a
Say
little. I say I had a little look for that 1 inch shot earlier. I was trying to get it up on YouTube, but I would. It's just struggle to find.
We're proud of our 1 inch.
Yeah.
It's a shame he's not here because we would just do him a disservice if we kind of just put his images up. You need his,
fair enough.
His enthusiasm behind them, and the backstory that goes along with them. Really, I think we just do him a disservice.
We'll save that for another day. Yeah, definitely. But you guys are
on every week. I mean, he is by far and away the most hard-working flat earther there is at the moment. He is out daily.
And where is he out daily? What would that channel be there, Nathan?
That's Ranty Flat Earth. No, seriously, you need to subscribe to Ranty because he is working really. to get these images. And, you know, it gets to the point where you go, the stuff you showed me, and you go, was it yesterday or the day before? That means that there's probably another 200 images that he's got to go through to get back to the ones that you wanted. In the show yesterday or the day before, I said the ones with the with Aries diffraction being shown on a boat and the wind behind it, and you've got one wind turbine that, because it's in that band and it's just a pole, you can see that it just looks like a pole all the way down to the bottom, down to the false horizon. Whereas the boat that's in front of it, obviously closer to you, has got this wavy, you know, all that distortion that we see so often. So it's really glaringly obvious with the boat. But when I asked him for it, he was like, I haven't got that picture. I was like, you've shown him it's really crucial to the point right now. And then about 20 minutes later, he managed to find it. And it was only from 2 or 3 days earlier. But yeah, definitely subscribe to Ranty Flat Earth.
And also, where does he appear generally daily on a channel similar to?
Oh, I see.
Nathan Oakley, 1980, maybe.
So Nathan Oakley, 1980 is where Flat Earth Debate takes place.
Brilliant. And what about you there, Tony? You got your own channel?
Sleeping Warrior. Straightforward.
We know. Yeah.
It's all good. But can I just say as well that Ranty's best observations are when he's looking at Barrow in finesse, and he's doing it at 18 miles, a foot off the water, and the water's tidal, and obviously it comes in and out, so he's stood right in front of where the water is. But at 18 miles, that's 2 miles further than Soundly, and we should be getting similar or comparable results, and he can see the shore. So if the Earth is really spherical, and you accept Soundly as the proof, then Ranty should be the same. And Ranty's getting the absolute opposite, and he gets it every single time he goes. All because of the world's not being a sphere.
And so will anyone else who's got the tenacity to go and test it themselves, I imagine.
Well, we've already done him a disservice because he's got one observation, and I will take a small amount of credit for this. So we were discussing some of his Barrow shots, and I said to him, well, when you're taking these shots, you're kind of 90 degrees to your target, and you're a foot off the ground. So the bottom half of the frame, because he's normally got the horizon about centre of frame, the bottom half of this frame is representing a foot in elevation between you and the target. You know, you've got this really, really wide angle, and it's filling half the frame. I said, why don't you try and tilt your camera up? So in other words, you're increasing the amount of the lens that you've got to potentially catch that thing. I don't know if it'll make any difference, but it's worth a try. So he a couple of days later went back to the exact same spot, dug out a ditch, I kid you not, and stuck his camera in it right next to the water, and got the shot, caught Barrow from an inch, lifted his camera out to point it where he'd been taking the picture, and literally a second later it was full with water from the tide. It couldn't be any more at sea level. It was an inch above the water, and you could see the waves, you know, because he's in a ditch and it's just lapping up in front of it. You can see higher than the lens. It's just amazing that his camera didn't get destroyed.
I wonder if you can get one of those waterproof enclosures for the P900 and literally have it in the water. That would be awesome.
I think he's thinking about selling it. It's in really good condition. If anybody's
have you seen there's a P1000 now, and it's a reality apparently?
Yeah, 125 optical zoom. 4K sensor.
They've got some balls, haven't they, Nickel?
It's not being marketed. Do you know what they're marketing it as? For bird watchers and astronomers, right? They didn't even mention flat earthers.
Oh no, their biggest market, I would imagine.
It's £1,000 though.
Yeah, I'd wait. Well, actually, now is a great time to probably buy the P900.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, you think that, but I bet you it goes up in price because nobody can afford £1,000 for a Sunday jolt.
Well, people who spend £1,000 or whatever, people who bought the P900 to start with, have generally got probably more money than they need. I'm not looking at anyone in particular, but it's those people now that need to sell those P900s to the paupers out there, flat earther like most of us, at a reasonable price, so that they have a deposit for their
deposit for the next mortgage
for their P1000. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
You see one for sale in the Blackpool area. Tread
it comes
carefully.
free with sand.
Hand-me-downs. That's what we need.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right, on that note, I'm probably going to do a runner because I've got a new member of the family that I don't want to. Yeah, thanks, mate. I don't
Give a
want
big hug and kiss for me.
If
I will.
Absolutely. Scratch those ears for me, too.
It's only me, Ant, that's doing one. I'm sure this will go on for a long time after I've done a runner.
Yeah, I'm going to do a runner too, though.
It won't. I'm buggered. I'm off to bed. It's been a good show and a long bloody day. So, guys, it was a real pleasure having you on again. Cheers.
Well,
Absolutely.
Let me just plug someone that's going live now in the next 10 minutes or so.
Go for it, yeah.
Jeronism. Make sure you go and watch Jeronism, because I'm sure he's going to talk about his experiment plan.
Brilliant. I will.
Absolutely,
Sorry.
everybody.
Not experiment. Test.
It's test.
Did you like that, Anthony, when I was getting to you earlier, how I called it a test and didn't say experiment?
Yeah. I do, yeah. We've got to be really careful with that word. It's a trigger word, isn't it?
Yep.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Likewise.
Mate.
Appreciate it so
Cheers,
much.
Zach. Cheers, Nathan. Cheers,
I'm
everyone.
going to go and troll the chats in Jaren's channel, so if Jaren goes live, that's where I'm going to be next for the next half hour or so.
Alrighty.
Thank you, guys, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, guys. Absolutely.
Brilliant.
We need to get you over on TFR again one morning or afternoon or whatever it is for you over there.
Cool, man.
Definitely.
Great show. Cheers, guys. Take it easy. I'm off to go and play with my pooch. That's not.
Yeah, well, you go play with your pooch, John. Off you go.
That's not a. What is it?
Euphemism.
Euphemism. Thank you. Okay. On that note, goodbye.
Bye, man. Love
Hi, Dad.
We need to know where Jaren is going live.
I was trying to check it now.
He's not on his own channel, I don't think. Bob, we need you to tell us in chat where he is.
I think he's on a non sequitur show, isn't he?
Oh, is that with Res Rhetoric now, Matt?
Yeah, I think that's happening here real soon. Isn't that tonight?
I don't know. Oh, he's live. Non Sequitur is live now. Res Rhetoric and Jeronism. He is.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, that's where I'm going to go and see what. So let's see how bad the moderation is on the Non Sequitur channel again.
Oh, yeah.
I will catch you in the week then, Anthony, after I've done my donkey work.
No worries, that's grand, guys. That's grand.
All right, mate. God bless. I might head over there anyway. As I head to bed, I'll check that out.
Cool. Ladies, gents.
God bless. Take it easy, pal.
Take
Thank
care,
you, brother.
Anthony.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye, guys.
Well, we're kind of in a holding pattern because I think Josh has to shut this thing down ultimately, doesn't he?
Nope. I'm in charge tonight.
See, I don't know who controls which lever.
Lever. No, we're all good. Is Josh off?
No, he dropped up about top of the hour. He headed up to grab a few things, grab some food or something. So he may be back soon, maybe back in 30 minutes. I don't know. He didn't give a time frame.
I'm gonna need some music.
Hey, I sent you a song I sent a song in Skype. Can you play that song? You have that ability?
I have no idea what abilities I've got, mate. We'll give it a go. In Skype.
We'll have to do a test, right? Not an experiment. We'll be doing a test.
That's the
You know how many videos I will have to go back and change? As I said, in this experiment, like an idiot.
No, you're allowed a cut-off point, I think. It's a bit like whenever you've used the word planet in the past.
There you go.
What we got here, Walt? Are you really going to do that? And get us a strike? Walt?
No, we don't have to. I just thought about the strike part. I forgot. It's getting late. I'm punchy.
Your anus of Uranus.
And let's blow it off and just sing a song. No.
Well, I'm thinking, Zach, I think Zach said he liked Gravity. And
I like Gravity.
I can definitely play that. I can get away with doing that.
Have we got that song? We got access to that? Are you sure?
I've got that. So.
Yeah, I enjoy it more and more every time I hear it. It's one of those that just grows on you.
Yeah.
Because it's not a bad song or anything. I don't listen to music anymore, and I'm very particular about any songs that I do listen to.
Right, our path with that song has been very interesting. It was found completely by accident, and the video I made with it just kind of fit, and it's been passed around and reimagined, remixed. It's been awesome.
Well, should we wrap it up and say goodnight then?
Sounds good.
I suppose we should.
Pretty good show there.
It's been amazing, brother. Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Thank you guys for putting up with me.
Putting up with you. Just glad you're hanging out with us, man.
I love it. It's like being home. This is, good times always. Even when we're arguing. Even when we argue.
Right. Zach is now seeing behind the scenes.
That's good. Shit gets sorted. It's not an argument.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a live discussion. Yeah.
Right, I'll fade us over to Gravity. Zach, yeah, mate, once again, thanks. I really enjoyed that and learned a fair bit there, mate. Right,
I can't wait to get into what
thank you so much. Sorry, I was
we got to get into Adam's thing for sure here.
Yeah, we need to build up on that. I was just overly excited about it, and then when I found that video about the light particles and stuff, it was kind of just too much of a coincidence that this guy whose videos I've been watching on a completely unrelated topic, he's also got videos about light. It was just too much of a coincidence. There are no coincidences.
Right.
I'll try and get it sorted so we can do it next week, so I can show it. But right.
And I'll get a hold of a couple of my the people we were talking about and see if I can't get them to help with the 3D modeling, stuff like that.
Sweet. That would be cool.
Yeah.
That would be helpful 3D, but well, there's only one person that knows how to say goodnight on a show properly. You've got the experience. Can you take charge? And I'll bring up Cheyenne. He's gone.
Absolutely, I was getting actually mid suddenly handing off to me. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us here on Flat Earth Friday FringeCast. Zach, thank you for the presentation. Everybody over there at Nathan Oakley's channel, thank you guys for being here with us. It was amazing. We always enjoy having you here, and welcome anytime. Your family. Josh, we miss you there, saying goodbye, sir. It was good to see you, James, in chat, and Rob was there early on. Everybody else in chat, thank you all so much. I see a bit of interesting discussion taking place at the moment. Keep it up. We're not leaving at the moment. We'll have some music to get us out of here, but Adam, John, Zach, Josh, I love you guys. Thank you all so much for everything we've done. It's been amazing, and everything we're going to be doing. I can't wait. It's going to be just mind-blowing.
Night, guys.
Night, Adam. Love you all. Love you, Adam.
Brother.
We're up pretty high, our heads are almost in the clouds, and their feet are chained to the ground with their chains of misery. They've got a hold of me, they won't let go of me. Let go of me. They might have gravity.
And I'm sitting here while the dead air go on while I'm reading back chat, trying to catch up on what went down.
there